the future, the
Oh my
future leader of Florida, Asif Nasralli.
Ladies and gentlemen,
No, he's gonna be Georgia.
he's going to
I'm gonna be
announce
Florida.
Bitcoin.
No, that's Diaz.
Okay, how's my microphone?
George Florida.
How's my microphone now?
Better.
How's
Way
it?
better.
Oh,
Better.
guys,
It's better.
did you guys? What is that
Yeah, that's better.
Oh, okay.
for Mitchell or for Asif?
No, for Asif.
How's mine?
Sounds good.
Pretty consistent,
I
Cameron.
don't have I just have this Logitech webcam that I'm using the mic on.
That's
Oh,
fun.
okay.
Why is it better than my mic? Is it good though?
You sound fine now.
Okay. Is it fine or good?
Fine.
Fine.
Not too bad.
Like
Not too bad.
not that bad.
Not too bad.
Like fine, actually fine, or like when a woman says, "Oh, it's fine,"
No.
Oh, it's fine.
you know it's not fine.
How are you? Fine. Like, oh fuck, guys, get to the bomb shelter.
No, it's fine. It's fine.
No, it's fine. It's fine. Oh shit. I'm just gonna slip my
Yeah, it's
wrist.
definitely anything but actually fine.
Okay.
What does the word fine mean?
Well, it's part of. So I looked this up with Jess because early on in our relationship that was a thing. And she's like, "It's fine." I'm like, "You're clearly not using that word in the way that it's coming off." And fine means like to finish or to settle, like in final, right? FIN. And so that became now how we redefined it, where it's like if you're fine, you're actually settled. And so Jess will not use the word fine like that anymore, unless maybe she catches herself. Or I mean, I'm sure I do it too. So sometimes, but that's like the best redefinition would be fine is it's settled, like actually settled.
That's cool.
That's cool.
Unless I get a fine for parking in the wrong spot, then it's not fine.
It's not settled. This isn't
Settled.
I'm talking to that parking assistant right now.
Not that I'm reacting to it. No, it's not actually settled until it's either paid or I prove.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, if they give you a fine, just be like, so we're done here.
Like, sir, I don't know what you're talking about. I'd be like, okay.
You gave me a fine, it's done. End of story. I'm not paying it. It's settled. So it's not fine. They're like, well, no. Okay, then you didn't fine me. Got ya.
Vocabulary.
The people that are like, yeah, natural law or whatever, quantum grammar. Like, this does not pertain to me.
You put a comma.
What is that shit?
You put brackets around the word. Oh.
What the
Let me
fuck
back
is
off.
that shit?
You know what though? Like the people who are not that smart, they get trapped by it because they're like, well, it couldn't be not true. It's so complex and like just everything, right? But there's like entire mathematical theories that are not correct, but that on the surface like seem really fucking complex and all. You know what I mean? There's like, and I know because there's two different theories that can't both be true, but they both sound really good. And it's like, well,
Good point.
you can make up shit with logic, which brings us into our podcast.
Cue the intro.
Open this up without it.
And we're back.
You guys already?
Shit.
Okay.
Do it
I
again.
tried to give you more.
I'm
Scale
never
of 1 to
getting
10.
old
Much is your adrenaline going right now?
at that. What's your pulse rate? How hard are you?
Yes.
And how hard do you want to go for
I was
next
asking you
hour
guys.
and a half?
Hey, on the way up here, I was watching this video from it was just some random clip that somebody put of like kind of juxtaposition, like back and forth clips of Facebook versus Microsoft's Metaverse reveals. Did you even know Microsoft is like doing Metaverse?
Wow.
I didn't either.
It makes sense that everyone's jumping on it. Nike was.
I mean, it does.
It does make sense. But I've only
But why
heard
is it that
Facebook's-
only? Why is that?
What was what?
You've only seen advertising for Facebook's Metaverse.
We only heard people talking about Facebook. Yeah. I think that's why it was so bad. Maybe that was on purpose. Like the way they did it was to get everybody to talk about it. Because I didn't even fucking know about Microsoft. And when I listened to the Microsoft one, it was way more interesting. Like the guy was talking just a very more clear, direct way. You know what I mean? And it was like explaining stuff. And it wasn't trying to just like hype it up and all this. It was actually explaining. But I didn't hear anything about Microsoft's Metaverse. Actually, though, I'm not sure if it's actually Microsoft is doing their own thing or not, because it's this, the CEO of Microsoft is Indian guy, right? I forget his name, but he when he says Metaverse, he says Metaworse. So I was like, is it too different? Is there the Metaverse and there's the Metaverse?
And this one's worse than the Metaverse.
And then there's like, here we're gonna create the Metafine. It'll be like just okay. But it was really interesting hearing his the Microsoft guy, because he was more direct in explaining it. And there was this one part where he was saying like, it's not just
get a better effect on the people. And when I say better, I mean if you were the company, which one do you think had a better effect?
I don't know.
Like,
I think
sold better.
The Microsoft one seemed like it was selling
to the average person. Like
no.
To the average person, which one sold better?
Yeah. No. Well, I think Facebook was selling to the average person. I think Microsoft was selling to all of like the people who are going to be building it,
right?
Building it and like, all that stuff. That's what it seemed like to me. But there was this point where I'll send you guys the clip later, but he was making this point like, he's like, he said it's the point where you're bridging the digital and the physical. And so you're not just going to see a picture of the assembly line of the car or whatever, or the floor. You're going to be there. Right. And so he's like, it's putting physical presence in digital spaces is what he's saying. The way that they're framing it is very interesting. And he's like, you're not just going to have a video conference with your friends. You're going to be with them in the room. Right. And he made this point. He said, up until this point, we've talked about creating all this stuff, but now we're actually able to do it. He said, he was kind of saying something like, you can't really even comprehend how significant this is. Right. And I was just looking at that, how the whole COVID narrative thing is what made this possible. Do you know what I mean?
Well,
yeah. Accelerated the point. It was like people were not going to accept this before. And now it's like, so it's so obviously artificial from that perspective in terms of they had this thing, they want to do it. How do we accelerate that point? Oh, here we go. Right. And also it's like, when you look at it, so I've been reading this book, or it's like a series of books that I've been telling you all about called Otherland. Mm-hmm. And I'm finally at the end where it's like the last probably 100 pages where it's like really revealing what everything actually is in the book.
3 books?
4 books.
4 books?
The fourth book is 1,000 pages. Uh-huh. So it's like the last little bit, right? And it's finally revealing everything. And man, it's so interesting because it's a really interesting book because it's like literally what the current elite are doing. They're trying to create an environment where they can control everything. It's not quite exactly what's going on in the books. I just don't want to spoil it if anybody wants to read it, but it's very similar.
Do it.
I think the most accurate. Spoil it. Well, I can't because Katie's still like probably a few hundred pages behind me, and she always listens to the podcast. So
I'm gonna stop listening to a podcast.
Sorry, Kate. No, but it doesn't matter. But the point is, like, I could just see how all these companies are coming together to create this point where people won't leave their home.
Yeah,
they won't need to. Like, you can go to someone's house by putting your goggles on. You see what I mean? Yeah. You'll just put your goggles on and you'll be at your friend's house. and people are not going to, now in itself, it's kind of a cool thing, right? Like for me, that's not going to replace going and doing things physically. Now, if you're a generation of children growing up without any guidance within that, then I mean, those kids are going to be fucked if it's not directed.
Think of how many people are already like, I make plans just to cancel them. Like, you know, that whole thing where like people are like, I don't want to go through the hassle of going to their house or whatever. It's like, but I want to be invited. This is now, you can be invited and show up without actually having to get dressed or anything. Like
you can sulk in a virtual environment. But like, think about this. Like, I mean, I'm not anti-technology because like we're doing a video conference right now. Like if we had the technology, let's just say hypothetically, where podcasts could be, you're sitting in the room, like with the people and you're discussing it, that would be cool. Yeah. If we could do this physically, we would. Like if we could just go to a studio, like if let's say we all lived in the same place and we could just go, instead of going to my office, for example, we could just go to a cool studio that's all set up and everything, we would do that. Mm-hmm. Like we would be there physically and talk and stuff, right? So it's not that we can't, we don't want to do the physical. So we could still embrace the technology. But I see like there's going to be a lot of children who are growing up in a world where that's all they're exposed to.
Well, that's interesting. Like, have you seen Elon Musk talk about the Boring Project? How they're looking at creating those like trains that are hyper speed or whatever.
Also
like
for cars.
Yeah. Like that would be interesting, right? Let's say there's one right in the middle of the US where we could all be there in 30 minutes. Like that'd be pretty cool, right? Hey, we'll meet in, I don't know, Chicago or something. It'd probably be like Kentucky or something. That would be actually
probably like East Texas.
Maglev, right to your door, right? And then we show up at Cameron's property, and then we just end up shooting guns on the podcast. Yeah, like think about that. Wouldn't that be?
Turn down your mic a little bit.
Nope.
Probably a lot of it.
Maybe not a lot of it.
Well,
how's it?
Yeah.
Is it fine?
Yeah, it's fine.
Are you settled? Are you fine within yourself on a being level? So yeah, like because that's also, so you can see there's the infrastructure behind both Meta and bringing everyone into this digital hyperspace, but there's also this infrastructure. Apparently, I don't know where the Boring Project and things like that are at, but where they're still doing physical stuff to get people to be able to move. So it's interesting that you see both of those getting investment and they're being, built on. I don't know. I'm going to raise my kids and make sure that they understand what the metaverse is so they don't get duped by it. But I could see a lot of kids having no freaking idea, and then they literally end up like in the Matrix in like 40 years.
I see like all these things, the cool stuff in the physical is going to cost a lot of money. So there's going to be so many people who can only participate in the metaverse. They're not going to be able to participate in things in person. That's going to be reserved for like rich people eventually.
They're still going to be broke in the metaverse too.
Yeah.
Will there be like meta influencers?
Definitely.
Oh, for sure. How could there not be?
But where
metaverse concerts already?
No. But what I'm saying is, okay, in the metaverse, you could take on characters, right? So in the metaverse, there's a guy or a person who's not actually a prince from Dubai. Mm-hmm. That's just his metaverse character. Wow. And there's another person who in the metaverse is a metaverse influencer model. Mm-hmm. And the meta prince pays the meta influencer to virtually fly to Dubai and take shits on himself and all his friends. And he pays him in Bitcoin, which he gets stopped at the border of Meta Dubai because you're not allowed to carry that much Bitcoin across the Meta border.
That's a pretty meta joke.
And people are going to be very meta fucked because they aren't going to be able to even understand what's real, and they're going to go fucking crazy. Are
there going to be cryptocurrency, like meta cryptocurrencies?
Metaphorically, yes.
No, but do you understand what I'm saying? Like, hear me out. The metaverse, is it
In
going to
the-
be
in the
free?
metaverse.
Is it going to be free and open like everyone thinks?
No.
Or everyone ideally wants? No, just like the internet became controlled over time. Like fucking look at it. Like it was all crazy. You could do whatever you want. You could post anything you want. You could be a Nazi. You could like be like a pug expert, whatever you want to do, right?
A pug expert. We went from Nazi to pug expert. That was really good.
Actually, it
Show the
makes
range.
sense. It actually makes sense. You just have to know the memes. But my point is, but then like corporate control, money, right? It starts to like become like, think about YouTube, right? You could make any videos you want, nothing. Now it's like, I mean, fuck, you're not going to be boosted in the algorithm. You're going to not be, you can't even get advertising money and so forth if you don't say the right things. So it becomes controlled over time. So that same thing's going to happen in the metaverse. We know that. So look at our society, right? We had money, which became obviously a point of control. And that's why they started creating like cryptocurrencies. It was a way of trying to, you know, apparently free yourself from that control, right? But if you're in the metaverse and it becomes controlled, are people going to create cryptocurrencies in the metaverse? Do you see what I'm saying? That's going to be like a way, like, in other words, imagine you're in the metaverse and it's like real to you. That's like you're alive, but you see how controlled everybody is. So you become like the Neo of the metaverse, but the metaverse is your base reality. So you're like, there's people who are building layers of meta realities in the metaverse to escape the constrictions of the metaverse. And they're trying to wake people up back to the metaverse.
That's what we're doing right now.
But we're trying to do it before we even get to the metaverse.
How do you know that? We could already be in the metaverse, and us creating the metaverse is our escape from the metaverse.
Well, that's a theory.
It's one of Elon Musk's theory, right?
Well, it's not his theory, but yeah. Have you guys heard about that simulation hypothesis? Right?
Yeah, that we're already in the metaverse. Yeah, how would you know?
We're in a
Well, we are in a sense. They're in your consciousness, which is not real. It's a simulation.
Oh, okay. Cool. I just was talking about this with Asif yesterday. Like over the weekend, something that really clicked for me in another dimension was just how much our entire reality is based off of words, language, right? Like somebody was making this point. Somebody was saying while we were talking that they want their kids to learn languages, right?
Okay.
Yeah, you know, right? And as they were talking, like I kept hearing languages. And it was just like really clear to me in that moment of when I'm talking right now, I'm just vibrating air, right? But
turn down your mic a little bit because you're vibrating air too hardcore. It's distorted.
Whoa.
Ah.
Can you do that Tuvan throat singing?
No,
that's just Skrillex.
No. But basically, like right now, just vibrating air, and then you're hearing these vibrations and interpreting that into an entire message, and everything that you interact with, like the mechanism that you're using to understand the world around you is you're talking to yourself. You're hearing words within your own mind, right? And literally all of your thoughts and everything that you interact with is based off of that. And people obviously cannot understand that, because if they did, they would understand the significance of just vocabulary, just in general. And it's so interesting because, you know, when you talk to somebody and you can see like, oh, I want to change my life and all this, but they can't see that simple concept of how you're basing everything off of your interpretation, which is not, they think of interpretation as some abstract concept. Like that in itself, interpretation in itself is what they're able to use, and like, meaning. It's like, where the fuck does that meaning come from? Like, it's literally based on the words that you have access to, that you understand, that you actually are using, you know?
That's why you can't change your reality without Technotutor, because you're not changing the words that are in there. You're still trying to do it within the context of the language and everything that you already know. So you can't get a different result fundamentally. You have to go in there and physically change it. And that's difficult. People can't understand it until you start doing it.
Yeah.
That's just the reality of the situation.
Yeah.
So you start doing it and you see the results changing. You're like, oh, now I start to see the significance of it.
Here's even more, like the next layer to that. Why I thought of this when you were talking about Metaverse, because I realized the people that I'm interacting with, the conversations that I'm having, is almost irrelevant, because I'm interpreting everything in my own mind. Like everything is coming through this filter, which I'm then like, so even the conversations that I have had with Asif over this weekend, we're physically together, but I've realized over the years, I've only been able to hear certain things that Asif says, right? Or interact with Asif in a very specific way. Because if he were to challenge me in any way before, I'd be like, fuck that guy. Fuck that guy, I'm not listening to him, right? But now I'm really able to not just engage with Asif, but like when he would say something to me that before I'd be like, fuck off, now I can actually understand what he's saying and go, oh, okay, I can see the value in that. But that's me, that's changed, right? That's my understanding that's changed. And so what I'm saying is, it doesn't even matter who you're interacting with, you're filtering everything. And it's almost as if like the people outside of you, it's almost as if they're irrelevant, because you're only going to be able to interact with them at the level of your vocabulary, to say it succinctly, right?
Well, that's a good point as to why the metaverse is not going to bring us together. Because the marketing of it is, it's going to allow everybody to come together in one global community and all be, unified and everything. And it's like that you're still going to be in a bubble,
right?
Right, and that's why something like Techno-Tutor could not work in the metaverse, right? Because you're not able to get the words into your actual, physical structure. You're still limited by that, right? Within yourself first, and then you're in this alternate character or whatever that you think you are. But it's like that's still at effect to what's been programmed into you.
Yeah, and it's
Physically,
interesting because
in this world.
your mind, your body, your vocabulary is filtering all the information that's coming to you, and now you're going to be in another level of that where it's already being filtered for you in the first place, which is what the metaverse is going to do. Like everything's going to be filtered. And you got to listen to that video. I'll send it to y'all later, where the guy's like, the Microsoft guy is saying how you can. I forget how he said it, but it was kind of like
the copyrighted content right now.
It was like one of those points of like, you can be there and be who you really want to be, sort of a thing. He said it in a specific way, but it's just like you can already do that in reality now.
Mm-hmm.
And how is it that going into a highly structured, artificial, corporate fucking controlled environment is going to allow you to be even more of who you are? Like, it's a manifestation of the fucking money system, which is what's causing all your problems right now as to why you can't be who you want to be. And then you think that going into this money fucking trap, money sinkhole, like, these games
got sold. That's really what it is. You just
these apps, that's all it is. These apps where it's like in-app purchase and all that stuff, right?
Yeah.
We think it's not going to be like that. It's like, give me a break.
Right.
On what Mitchell was saying, it's like what you're doing is you're actually becoming a parent to whatever you create in the metaverse. So
you're becoming a what? A parent? What did you say?
You're giving birth to yourself in the metaverse. So it's going to be is like, now you have this thing outside of yourself that you downloaded all of your bullshit into. That's not going to, whatever level you exist at in this system is what you're going to exist at in that system. It's just going to be way harder for you to figure out why you can't figure it out. You're like, why does that person have so much metaverse land and I don't? Like it's because the same reason why you're fucked in real life. You don't have the vocabulary to understand how to play this game effectively. Right.
Hey,
And when I say
let me
game, I mean how to rise in the system. What was that?
let me give me ability to share audio, and I'll just do some little quick clips of it.
Revenge of the ego. It's
Do
got you
it.
by the balls.
All right.
All right, let me see if I can just share the audio part. Yeah, let's play this. Let's see if it's.
As the digital and physical worlds come together, we are creating an entirely new platform layer, which is the Metaverse. We're bringing people, places, and things together with the digital world in both the consumer space as well as in the enterprise. Take, for example, Dynamics 365 Connected Spaces, which we are announcing this morning. Connected Spaces provides a new perspective on the way people move and interact in physical spaces, whether it's a retail store or a factory, or even how organizations manage health and safety in a hybrid work environment. You can do analytics, you can get real-time insights, you can run simulations, you can automate routine tasks. And when we talk about the Metaverse, we're describing both a new platform and a new application type, similar to how we talked about the web and websites in the early 90s.
All right. And then I'm going to skip the Microsoft one real quick and go back to him for a second.
That's cool.
Or I mean the Facebook.
Across the Microsoft cloud, from Azure IoT to Azure Digital Twins to Connected Spaces and Microsoft Mesh, we're building the Metaverse intrinsics, the Metaverse platform for you to build upon. In a sense, the Metaverse enables us to embed computing into the real world and to embed the real world into computing, bringing real presence to any digital space. For years, we've talked about creating this digital representation of the world, but now we actually have the opportunity to go into that world and participate in it. What's most important is that we are able to bring our humanity with us and choose how we want to experience this world and who we want to interact with. I can't overstate how much of a breakthrough this is. It's no longer just looking at a camera view of a factory floor. You can be on the floor. It's no longer just video conferencing with colleagues. You can be with them in the same room. It's no longer just playing a game with friends. You can be in the game with them.
The feeling.
How was that?
How was this?
Guys,
how
hold
was
on,
this-
guys. It's like
what someone would want.
this, like,
You don't have
what's-
to just work in the factory or
I know.
let somebody work in the factory. You can be
imagine the person going
factory.
like, I've been in a factory. I've been working in a factory my whole fucking life. What are you talking about?
I
Or
can't
like,
wait
I'm
for
thinking
them.
like, what do you mean? Wait. You can actually go and be with your friends and play games physically
Yeah.
in
Or
this
like you
thing?
can-
I've
it's like-
never done such a thing.
Where he's like, you can go
Finally,
build- It's like
they're
you
solving
can
problems
literally-
that don't exist.
Yeah, exactly. It's like you can literally go do all that stuff that he was talking about in real life. You
Like,
just don't
no,
have
but
the-
think about it. You've taken a whole generation and sucked them into video games. And then they're like, guys, these video games are not like the real world. They're not like being physical with people. Let's make them like you can be physical with people. And it's like, why don't you just put down the fucking video game?
There was like, it's like he was hyping up about you'll be able to, bring the humanity to it and you'll be able to actually choose who you interact with.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, I don't want to interact with unvaccinated people anymore.
That's what I'm saying. You see like how it's putting in all the key words where it's like, it's going to be controlled.
Because that's the whole thing now. It's like, I don't want to be around people who are unvaccinated, right? So why would you imagine this multi-billion-dollar company, whoever put together this speech, it's done specifically. It's not this guy wrote it. He's delivering it, right? There's a bunch of people who put that together, right? Like how speeches go in government, and government's like a really shitty for-profit. Imagine a real for-profit. They take a lot of time to create the speeches. And that specific line, it's like, when before did you want to choose who you interact with before this whole racism push and the crisis on our hands that so many people are dying from. It's like, what, Mitch? You saying?
No, I mean,
But you see what I'm
I'm
saying?
saying.
It's like a particular thing inside of people that you just be like, oh, cool. Now I can choose who I interact with. Finally, you know, that one family member who's not vaccinated. Fuck them. They're not coming.
they're
Even
not-
though that would be the safest
Mm,
time to
yeah.
come.
But it's like
Yeah.
you could have done that before,
You just don't have balls.
right?
We're gonna have Thanksgiving without
Metaball.
balls.
What was I just thinking of? It's like it's gone now.
People have been choosing who to interact with since, I don't know.
The dawn of choice.
Yeah. Like slave owners would choose not to interact with their slaves all the time. This isn't going to be any different. You know who gets to choose who they interact with? The elite.
It's just
Right.
such a like it's such a it's so surreal because they're like you you cannot just see the factory floor, you can be on the factory floor. And I'm like, you could already be on the factory floor. You could already go do those things. Like, what are you talking about? Why do you need to be able to do it virtually? Why don't you just go to it? Because like, okay, what is the answer to my question?
Can you be on the factory floor of like Nike shoes? Like, can I get to go see this?
Yeah.
It's like literally you could be on the
You can
plantation
see
with your
the alien
slaves
child.
without having to actually physically be near them.
Yeah.
You can be in the
Fuck, man.
comfort of your mansion,
Yeah.
but with your slaves at all times, monitoring them, watching them.
Yes.
Yeah.
What is
So-
the average person gonna do? Is it really just they're just gonna sit around and just be on the metaverse, just cruising around, creating stuff?
Sitting on this factory floor.
And Mitch pointed out this thing in the chat at the very beginning. He says, like, not only is this going to be a really cool environment for consumers, we're also inviting in the enterprise. We're going to have a whole system for that. And Mitchell's like in the chat, consumer and enterprise, because that's all a reality is. And as soon as you said that, I'm like, yeah, they're just making it a big mall. It's
Yeah,
just a big mall where you can pay for experiences and buy stuff. And
dude, I'm telling you, that's exactly what this thing is when you read Otherland. Like the way so it's cool when you read science fiction, because when you read a lot, you can see already what things are going to be, because that's what science fiction is. And people say like, oh, that's crazy. It's like, that'd be like reading some Jules Verne shit from like a long time ago from the 20s. And then they invented like submarines. And you're like, yeah, I can see where that's going to go. Deep sea exploration, all that. Like, how can you see all that? It's like, because someone already explained that was possible to me. Somebody already visualized it and described it. So now I can easily go, okay, well, I can see where that's going. Do you see what I mean? So you could see where, hey, Jess.
I prefer Jess in the real world, not the metaverse. Just FYI.
My real world food is much more enjoyable.
yeah.
Do that.
Yeah. Soon they're going to have like a blanket that you can put on your tongue so you can eat digital food, and then it'll stimulate your tongue taste buds. That'll come.
I want to take a mega bite out of those digital biscuits.
Good one.
Like, yeah, you're saying about the science fiction though, like that's yeah, I mean, I'm working through 1984 and Snow Crash right now, and you just you see it. But then even with all this, right, everything we're looking at with the metaverse and clearly showing there's a giant fucking mall, this is gonna just distract people. It's like, so then what does someone do who also realizes this is problematic? I mean, obviously be part of our community, but it's even more important than that. It's like, I mean, Avery says this all the time. It's stand up, stand out, speak up and speak up. Yeah. And it's
the opposite of sit down, shut up.
Right. And that's what we need more of. And if you're in the mindset of like, well, this metaverse thing sounds really cool and all that, it's like you're just going more inward into sitting down and shutting up instead of actually seeing, okay, how is this metaverse thing even being sold to people? Like, there's all these businesses, there's this whole media network. They have all these different pieces in place to sell people on this. So it becomes very easy for people to just, want to follow along. It's like the donkey following the carrot on a stick. But when you can see that, and then you realize that, it's like, we have a big responsibility on our hands. It's not enough for you to post Facebook articles about this or to say, oh, the metaverse is like the Matrix. It's like, sure, you could post that, but then what do people do with that? Otherwise it turns into the other people reading 1984 going, oh my gosh, it's like what's happening right now. And then they just go back to their job. So to truly stand up and speak out, I mean, there's a lot of skills you need, right? There's a lot of, but it's what we've done with Self-Perfected and with TechnoTutor is we made a system out of it. So you can systematically stand up and speak out. That's probably the most important thing. I mean, I can't think of anything else more important. That's why I spend my Monday mornings doing this.
Yeah, like look at the system, the clubhouse. The clubhouse is part of the system, right? Look at the clubhouse that you had on the weekend.
Yeah, where we got 30 some new people that had not interacted before. Some of them had, but a majority of them were new. And these are people coming together. They're like, wow, one of the biggest comments that we got was, it feels so good to be around people and around like-minded people who have a big vision, but also realize like it takes discipline. That was a common thread that I was seeing, was people like, yes, other people who have vision for their life and like they want to do more. And they also realize like, hey, I gotta be disciplined. And this craving of being in real person. Because if you did that shit in the metaverse, it would suck. I wouldn't go to it. There'd be no point.
Yeah, it's like the first thing that I thought of, it would be like, the very first thing is like the video conferencing point. In the metaverse, if it's just VR, I still can't see your face. And I lose out on all the value of video calling to see how you're processing what I'm saying.
Yeah, like a real hug. Like there's so much physiologically that goes on when you do things like that. Right, just literally being in proximity to people.
You'll get a vest. It'll simulate a hug.
I forgot. They have a full bodysuit.
That's right.
Do I have to wear my clothes under the bodysuit, or is it just like full on?
No,
you don't have to wear anything.
That's all.
Yeah.
Yeah, like so what we've done, right? So for anyone listening to the podcast that's seeing the insanity of the metaverse and how people are like, it's just shiny object, shiny universe. There's more than just one object, right? And people want that. But for the people who realize, okay, there's something more going on here, what we've done is we've created a practical step-by-step system so that you can stand up and speak out and find the other people who aren't being sold or who are resisting or whatever they are, but they're not like totally into this idea of, just going with the metaverse. And people that want to make this reality be awesome, make this reality be one where everyone can actually build shit. And if you want to do anything, you can do it. I mean, within reason, but we want to equip everyone with those tools. And a big part of that we've been doing recently is the clubhouse. And that has been awesome to see because you guys have it going on in Florida. There's a big group in Texas. We got Canada, all that. And here in Minneapolis, we've got now the space and the community where it is a serious force to be reckoned with. I see very easily how in the next 6 to 12 months, we could even outgrow the current space we're in, right? Then we actually have to look at more of like a stadium type setup. But, 1 week at a time, one day at a time, not going to get too far ahead of myself, but the demand is there. And it's not everybody, not everyone's looking to come to the clubhouse, but there's about 20 to 25% of people that are like, yo, this is cool. Like I've been looking for, or I hear a lot of people saying, they're like, I've been praying for this. I'm like, okay, cool. However you want to justify it to yourself for right now. Yeah, we're here. And then you see these people too, because then afterwards we had some people over, for dinner, hanging out, playing games and stuff. And we have this whole new wave of people who just came in. They're like, yo, this TechnoTutor thing, it makes complete sense. I'm like telling them about destiny, all this stuff. One of the guys I was talking to, I was explaining the principles and best for all and all that. He's like, oh, He's like, yeah, I've heard about something like that. He's like, it's called Enlightened Self-Interest. Have you ever heard of that? Where it's like, if you were the most self-interested person, you would realize that you have to make reality best for everyone, because then you'd actually experience even more of yourself, which is pretty cool, right? So that was his vocabulary to understand it. I'm sure there's some nuance to it, but he was like, he's totally down. So we'll see this week, right? But he's like, he gets it. And he brings a whole new skill set. He looks, man, you'll meet him later on. He reminds me of someone straight out the Matrix, like on the cool team.
Okay.
Do you want like a leather trench coat with like?
Yeah, like almost trench coat, but like the leather and everything. He looked kind of like a mix between like Blade and Neo. I've never actually seen Blade Runner, but it was like
this guy's
Blade or Blade Runner?
Yeah, wait, which one are you talking about here?
the black one.
Blade,
Blade.
Blade, like
Blade,
Wesley
yeah.
Snipes.
Okay,
He
okay.
did
Yeah,
run
yeah.
though.
Yeah,
Yeah.
And
He
the
didn't-
government caught him.
Hey,
yeah. I've never
listen,
seen Blade Runner, so it's silly me, right?
check
But-
this out. I'm looking at like the recommended videos from, because I was just listening to that Microsoft thing, right? I'm seeing one by Qualcomm talking about their vision for the metaverse, and I see over here on my recommended NVIDIA,
Oh,
like there's all these, they're all on it. Like, I mean, you tell me if I'm wrong, but did you guys think of it as, oh, Facebook has just created this thing and it's all like a Facebook thing?
I thought of
Didn't
it
that
like that.
seem like how it was based in terms of just what you heard, like how the algorithms presented it originally? But now I'm like clicking and going, and I'm like, oh, dude, fuck, like everybody's already on this. Like, and they're sophisticated. They're not just like, oh, yeah, we want to be a part of it. They're like, and this is what we've got, and we've got these systems and this in place and that in place. Like, they've clearly been planning this.
Yeah.
This is not like it just happened. The reason I'm saying that is because people need to fucking realize this is not like, they're just like, here's a beautiful gift to humanity. They're like, no, we are trying to make money here.
Right.
That's why they're doing it. And it's like the system wants more control. Everything with the pandemic, all of this stuff has been pushing towards this point so that humanity will just plug into the matrix. They should have just called it the Matrix. I wish they just called it the Matrix, but instead we're stuck with the Metaverse.
Yeah. Now, how funny would this be, right? The metaverse gets so enticing that they all just trap themselves in it, and they basically like trap themselves out of existence, out of reality.
Did you already read Otherland?
No, but I studied stuff, and didn't a similar thing happen where the creators?
That's why I'm saying this guy must have known some things. Also, Snow Crash. How far along in that book are you? Like pretty into it?
Pretty early.
Page 2.
Still working through it.
Tell me if I'm wrong, Drake, but there's like a whole
Table of contents.
there's a whole other layer of Snow Crash that's all about language.
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
not
yeah,
just
yeah,
about
yeah.
the science fiction of being in the metaverse. It's like a whole language thing that's like talking about
See,
how
I'm-
language creates reality and everything.
It's
For a
really
while,
awesome.
he's a pizza delivery guy, and I'm like, okay.
No.
Is this
Yeah,
about pizza
He's
delivery?
a pizza delivery guy for the mob, basically for the mob.
It gets
And
really
like
good.
everything in physical reality has fractured into like all these different, like basically corporations have basically bought all the fucking property everywhere and like divided the reality, physical reality, into like different corporate systems.
Well, hey,
That's
Jude,
what's going on in our reality.
I heard this the other day. I have not fact checked this, but that apparently Jeff Bezos bought like 750,000 acres in Brazil.
Oh, he literally bought the Amazon.
Wow.
Is that what you're telling me? He literally bought the Amazon.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. But think right, that would make sense because at some point, I mean, just look at Boston Dynamics, all these robot companies. They're going to create some sort of self-defense system to where it doesn't matter if you're part of the military or whatever. If you have enough money and enough technology, you could build your own nation state and then based on the corporation, and no one can get in. Like what, you're going to fly?
You're right.
Do surveillance, they're going to shoot you down. So it's
Private
that's where
property.
this is headed. What?
Wow, that's a great point. Private
That's it.
property. Yeah, you can't.
Right.
It's
That's
corporate
Snow Crash.
laws.
Yeah.
We read the book.
So,
You already got
I
it.
mean,
Yeah.
you can already like control the health rules in your corporation. That's already been shown, right?
right. I mean, isn't that interesting? Like, I know we were talking about Star Wars earlier, and I was never really that into it. But now you're starting to see, like, I watch those Boston Dynamics videos, and then you see
All
the
you
whole
see is R2
army.
everywhere. Is that what you mean?
No, I was gonna say C3PO is gonna Make my food for me and bring it for me. I'm just kidding. It's
I
like
heard this theory that C3PO was gay.
Certainly sounded gay.
Yeah.
Yeah, and like he becomes more sassy throughout the series. Like, my God, R2D2. And he's like this like sassy gay dude. And I watched it, and like there's an example. I was like, holy shit, man. It was this comedian, obviously, like doing a bit, but I was like, he's kind of right, man.
Yeah.
Well, can a robot have sexual preferences? I don't know. But what I'm saying is these Boston Dynamics videos, it got me realizing it's just a matter of time before these things can use weapons.
Hold on. Are we just gonna skip over that one liner Mitch just gave us? That was so good. He goes, can a robot have sexual preferences? I don't know, but I'm like, that's like a whole topic of discussion right there.
Well, yeah, right.
People will debate it for years.
Right.
And well, you saying when you look at Boston Dynamics, you see robots with weapons, right?
Well, and this is the progression.
Yeah, it's inevitable. They're going to be
robots with weapons, and then robots.
They're just building that company until like the government's like, all right, here's $1 billion for all your stuff, you know?
Right. There's a term for it called hyperwar, which is like when the warfare gets so intense that it's like all this like where technology is basically involved, like to that high of a degree where there's like AI and shit fighting itself.
That G.I. Joe shit. I never seen it, but you know, they're like enhanced.
I read a book.
Joe.
Did they make a movie?
Yeah, like
I just remember playing with the toys. That was like my initiation into like totally going into my own metaverse of my own consciousness, being like battling. Yeah.
See, you watched the show. Did you ever watch the show when you were a kid?
No.
You must have watched some kind of shows about fighting and stuff, though.
Well, my neighbor had the G.I. Joe toys, and then we would pretend to shoot each other with it.
Oh, that makes sense.
We make it like as realistic as we could too.
There's a book I read called Robopocalypse, where like suddenly one day like the robots that were all like automated, like everything's automated at that point and like interconnected and everything, and then like the robots start like turning on everybody, turning on humanity, and start like killing humans. Then it becomes like this underground battle between humans and the robots.
Oh, that's called iRobot. I saw that.
You telling me we should go underground to hide from the robots?
That's not really iRobot though. Isn't it just like one robot in iRobot?
Is it just one robot that goes rogue?
Well, I don't remember it, but I know that's the beginning of it. But like, no, this is like one day all the fucking robots suddenly switch. And it's like a bloodbath. And it's called Robopocalypse.
How did it end? I mean, obviously it's a show.
I don't remember. I think I stopped reading it because it was very sensational. It was not like a terrible book, but it was also kind of like, you know.
I don't know.
Yeah, it was more like action.
It
was more like action. I don't like this kind of books where it's like just a lot of action. It was like reading a Tom Clancy novel with robots.
Never actually read a Tom Clancy novel, but our neighbors had this estate sale. Their library was out of control, so I got a bunch of books.
You got a lot of Tom Clancy.
I got a Tom Clancy book because I was like, hey, this might actually be interesting to read.
I read those a lot when I was a kid. Like I wouldn't say I was obsessed with them, but I read quite a few.
I would
like
explain
all the
why
Rainbow
you're
Six
so,
and everything.
That would explain a lot about why you're so, violent.
Wait, are we just gonna skip over the part where Mitchell and his brother made toy figure fighting as realistic as possible?
No, that was me and my neighbor.
You and your neighbor?
Yeah.
How did you make toy fighting?
Me and your neighbor?
No. So it was like this weird thing in my mind where if it wasn't like, okay, obviously, right? Like, let's say, so I got a team of 4 G.I. Joes and he got his team of 4. And then, because like if they're like flying around, I'm like, that's not realistic. I wanted to make it as realistic as possible, probably to get like the adrenaline experience or whatever. I mean, I'm freaking like 4. Right, or 5 or something.
The guy's like, I gotta take my multivitamins in the morning before I go to battle. Like, how realistic are we talking here?
Yeah, basically.
Like, stay hydrated, Cobra.
Right. So
we don't have the proper sanitation. You're gonna get gangrene.
Somebody got to empty these porta potties. You're like sitting there for 20 minutes, playing like, sorry, I got to fill out some acquisition paperwork or requisition paperwork over here.
He's like calling his wife and like checking on his kids, right? So it makes it dramatic.
He's like, no, I can't make it home for Christmas this month. I'm on duty or whatever.
And then so it would be like, right, like the characters couldn't fly around, so that wouldn't be realistic. So they'd like be on the ground and like hide behind stuff, and then like one would shoot at the other, and it was like somehow you would know, like, okay, he got him. Then he's like, no, he got him. But it was so funny because like my neighbor, he had like 4 brothers. I had 1 brother. He had 4 brothers. They were like really intense and like really suppressed. Look, yeah, I'm just looking back at it. It was all messed up. And he'd get like really into like making the machine gun sounds, but you could tell like it was spiking his emotions, and he would like get more possessed by it.
He's just like, he's like really serious about it.
Yeah, it was like, it was wild. But so
Do you
anyway.
remember the GI Joes would come with these little plastic platforms? You know what I'm talking about? Like their feet would have little holes in the bottom of the feet.
Oh yeah.
And there would be like a plastic platform with a little peg, and you could put their foot into it so they could stand up like and be like posed.
Yeah, I
could remember that. But
yeah.
like we would those would be like our hoverboards.
Yeah.
See,
and I like that's unrealistic. But now I realize Boston Dynamics probably has that shit, hoverboards for the soldiers. So really, I was predicting the future. Well, I couldn't see the future. No, long story short, after I'm doing my DIP writing, I'm noticing all this shit from my childhood, where like I had developed all these characters in my mind of there constantly being this battle in reality, whether it was with toys or myself, or then I watched like Lord of the Rings as a kid, and then I had like 2 battles in my mind. It's just messed up, because why the fuck was I thinking about that?
Dude, look, that shows you how using stories and so forth, you can program reality into specific points, because everyone's focused on that and living that out.
And for me to just be a consumer to the enterprise of G.I. Joe or Mattel or whatever owns that. And then they got the TV, and then they got the movie and the whole thing. And I'm like in loving, it wasn't even G.I. Joe was the main thing that I loved. It was just my neighbor had those toys and we like loved playing that game. But look at that. I mean, imagine if instead I grew up on some land where I had some ATVs, where I had some like computer, like learned how to actually program the computer, had a library, had TechnoTutor first and foremost. Like imagine how much different my life would be by now. Obviously, it's like not relevant, because it's not relevant in a sense because I can't go back and physically change that. That was just reality. But now I look at it for myself real time, and I'm looking at where am I at today in 2021, but where do I want to be in a couple of years, and what do I want for my kids, and then for the community? Because if I'm not careful, you're going to see the kids not even playing with real action figures. They're just going to hook them up to the VR, which they already did. David posted something of that little girl with the fucking VR headset on, getting the jab in the arm. I'm like, oh boy. All right. Systems getting more ruthless. It's just an image.
So now, but it's I mean, that was such an interesting picture. It's showing you can use this to escape from reality.
Yes.
We're gonna be fucking injecting you with whatever we want. You're gonna put on the goggles and be in your own world where everything's happy and fun, while we sit here and fucking inject you with shit.
Right, with no understanding of the long-term consequence of either of those things. 1, the thing going in the arm and how that affects the child and their development. 2 is what is going on in that child's brain when they can't see reality and they're just seeing this metaverse VR thing for however long.
Yeah. What they are seeing in that, because I remember seeing the video that they played to the children when they're getting the vaccination, and it's like,
was it like some transgender like drag queen reading stories to them about?
That was delivering the thing. She's like, express yourself with this.
It's like a transgender person with a huge dildo. Like, hey, here, it's not a needle. Be accepting. It's like worse than reality.
That's the.
But you're saying you actually saw what they were looking at?
And I don't know if this is universal, but I know at least in one context, which I think it would be. It's like they're in the middle of like a beautiful island, blah blah blah, and it's kind of like a futuristic kind of character who's like, and we need your help, and it's like, but you're kind of like not strong enough. You need like a special whatever, and like a butterfly like flies onto you, and it like, and then as the butterfly is there, then they put the vaccine into their arm, and then you just see like your arm like become blue and strong, like you see it go through you, right? So it's going to become third dose. It's like, okay, I just see it becoming more like get your superpower, like Come get your
Yeah.
third dose. It's gonna be your superpower. Oh, the fourth superpower is out. You can go get it. And
That's so sinister, man. Because like, why can't you just explain to the kid what it is and why they should do it?
Yeah.
It just shows you like they're just lying.
Yeah.
That is so fucked. Because at the end of the day, remember, it's about conditioning the current young children into accepting something.
Yo.
Right now. Right now is like the very rudimentary version that we will all just go along with out of fear. But later it'll be now get this next upgrade enhancement or whatever that will allow you to have more control over the person within the digital
The
metaverse.
wearable technology or the implanting technology, things like that.
I remember there were certain things in video games where unless you bought I'll give an example, like the limited edition Xbox 360 that came with Call of Duty, then you get this exclusive gun, and there's no way of getting it unless you had it. So if you just got a normal Xbox because you're like, oh, I want an Xbox, and you got it, and then you bought the game and whatever, you would then not be able to access this gun. I'm just giving an example, right? And I could just see how, you're going into the metaverse, you're going to play a game, you're going to go into a space, and it's going to basically show, do you have this vaccine? If so, you would get these perks, which will give you upper hand, like all these kinds of things that will just create that impulsing around in-app purchases, the equivalent being do stuff in the real world, and we'll get stuff here, right? Because it's so easy. That's an infinite supply, right? To do things in the digital, right? And so,
That's so fucked.
It's absolutely where it's going, because think about every child we've heard so many stories of kids grabbing their parents' credit cards and spending $1,000, $17,000 on in-app purchases to buy gems so they can buy skins or whatever, right? It's like you're just playing with that point, because when your social image of yourself is based off how you compare to other people in a virtual world, there's no limit, no more limits to that. But the actual limit and in terms of the context that you would be developing yourself in is draining all of yourself, because we've all, maybe not all, but we know what it means to, in a video game, you want to level up. So what you do is called farming. You go and you just train and train and train and train and get the experience so you can go fight the boss and kill him, no problem. Or you go and do a bunch of side quests, or you go and do something in a virtual world where you can spend 3, 4, 6, 8 hours just to level up your character so you can go on with the game kind of thing. That's already happening.
And the game was designed that way.
Exactly. Now imagine, because the whole thing, what you're trying to do in a video game is put yourself in there like you're the fucking main character. You try to like dress them the way you would dress, or make them look the way you would look, like, or who you want to be, right? It's like, okay, now make it so that it is you. And they're not saying, CJ in, GTA San Andreas. They're not saying CJ is the main character. They're saying Cameron is the main character. They're saying Mitchell, like, come with me, Mitchell. You're like, oh, that's me. Like, I got to look after myself in this virtual world. Like, it's bridging that gap between digital and the physical.
That's so funny. Because I'm like, I don't want to fucking waste my time on that shit.
Right.
I want to just make reality awesome, like this reality.
Right. But I see who I was when I was a teenager.
Yeah.
Now I don't play video games anymore, but that addiction was so hard to break. Imagine having that all over in every way. Because when I would want to talk to my friends on Facebook, I don't have to go play my Xbox to talk to my friends on Facebook. But now all of it's coming together in one thing, where you're constantly having to go through the metaverse in order to do all these things that you want to do. Like, eventually American Eagle is only going to go on to the metaverse, where you have to go through the metaverse to try on the clothing in the metaverse to see what that would be like, because they know it's going to make them more money, et cetera, right? It's like, you see the American Eagle stores are, I'm just giving an example, American Eagle, I didn't actually see this, but the stores are diminishing. There was a lot of times when the stores would be shut down in person for holidays, whatever, but the online store is still open.
Yeah.
Still making a lot of money, because actually they're making more money because people are at home doing nothing because of the holiday, right? In any context of holidays.
So not only that, people are home, they're just clicking, right? But also they don't have people in the store that they have to spend money on.
My God. Yeah. You just pay for a server, right? A couple of servers. So the significance of that is every way that, and you want to talk to, I want to talk to Mitchell. I want to check my banking. I want to do anything. It's not going to be this, it's going to be all integrated where you have to come through the metaverse in order to access that stuff. So as soon as you just like when you get on your phone, you're like, oh, I got to send that email. And then you see you have a notification and then you click it. And then you spend a bunch of time doing a bunch of shit that you didn't go on your phone for. And you're like, what did I go on my phone for again? Right. And so it's going to be the same thing in the metaverse where you go in there to do something because you can only do something in the metaverse. But then you end up interacting with all the other bullshit that will be impulsive. And because it's going to be more closer to physical reality, you're just going to want to explore more because it's new. But we weren't primed as much to be a consumer when the internet came out and it was hard to navigate all that stuff. With the metaverse, it's going to be so
well, that's what that guy was saying.
Yeah,
that's the whole point of what they're saying is like being able to merge those two. Another thing I was looking at, because one of you had mentioned before, oh, it's like Drake, you were joking about like, how do you know this isn't already the metaverse that we're in right now? But look at the difference of like physical reality versus virtual reality. Like I can program something within an hour and then at the click of a button, it's totally altered fundamentally. But that's not how physical reality is. Physical reality takes a lot of time and physical effort.
Yeah.
And so if you think about it, if you have a child in physical reality versus a child in a virtual reality, think of all the different things they can be exposed to and go through and environments changing and information and stories and messages and everything that can be impulsed on them in a very short period of time versus if they're in the physical world. Do you know what I mean? Like, like my kids, they have like this big, like the dirt mountain thing they like to play on. They have to walk over to it and climb on it and play in it. They can't just be like, oh, dirt mountain. Okay, next, like, it's like you have to slow down and physically go through a process. And there's a value to that. And I don't mean like a value in the sense of, it's not like, people like, well, I don't like online music. I like the vinyl music or whatever. And it's like, because it's just like a nostalgia or something. I don't mean it like in that kind of a sense of value. I just mean the problem is it's so easy to abuse the other point. I just started buying records recently and I bought a turntable. And the reason I did it was because I wanted to create an environment where my kids could, because we didn't really listen to music a lot since we moved out here to this new place. Because at the old house, we had Alexa hooked up to Spotify. And we would always be like, just telling it what we wanted to play. And we made a decision when we moved out here, we weren't going to do that. We weren't going to have Alexa anymore. Right.
Why is that?
And because the thing fucking spying on you, number one. And when it started suggesting things to our kids, we were like, okay, it's done.
What do you mean? Like, how did it suggest?
I don't remember. I wasn't there, but Katie, she told me like, it was like, I don't remember what it was, but it was like talking. It was like advertising something to Max when he was like talking to her or whatever. Right. So we were like, hey, we're not doing that anymore. Because you can just see where all that's going. Right. So anyway, so I started buying physical records because if everything is on Spotify, okay, like Drake, you like music, right? Well, all of you guys like music, but I know Drake, like we talk about music a lot, right? You already have a certain idea of the things that you like. You've been exposed to a lot of music over the years. You know what I mean? Same with me, right? And so I've kind of built a mental library of things that I like, don't like, and so forth, right? But the kids don't already have that. So how do they do that on Spotify? Now, when you go to the Spotify app, let's say you have a brand new Spotify app and you don't know anything about music, what is going to be suggested to you?
Whatever's popular.
Exactly. So it's not actually this free, open, like discover anything. Like you're never going to discover Captain Beefheart or Frank Zappa, things that I like. If you are a brand new person who didn't know anything about music, you're probably not going to be listening to Prokofiev. You know what I mean? You're not like, there's a lot of things you're not going to be listening to, and you can have a debate about what music is good or bad or whatever. But I'm saying one of the things that got me into reading a lot was when I came across a big box of books in my house that my dad had brought home from a house that he's a realtor. And this box of books was left there, and I was going through it, and I found this really cool science fiction novel, and that's what got me to start reading science fiction. It was something physically there, right? So I started building in our house. I started taking some of the books out of a certain room and putting records there, so the kids will be able to then go at some point go through and like pull stuff out, and we can keep adding to that. You know what I mean? And then something like Spotify could supplement that. You know what I mean? Like I've been able to take and discover a lot more things because I already have some kind of physical reference point. You see what I mean? But again, so here's my point though. Let's say you take a kid who's brand new to everything, doesn't already have preferences, doesn't already have any idea of what they want to see or whatever, and you plug them into the metaverse. What are they going to be exposed to immediately?
Whatever's popular in advertising, really.
Yeah. And it's gonna be like whatever the kids shows are, like Paw Patrol, this and that, like whatever Disney thing, whatever. Mm-hmm. You think they're just gonna like create this thing and be like, here you go. Hey, if you happen to stumble on some Disney content, that's great. No, they're gonna be like, you're gonna fucking consume our Disney content. We're gonna shove it down your throat until you accept it. It's like we just bought a new car, and we deliberately didn't get the screens in the back seats because, well, for a lot of reasons. But one thing I noticed is if you buy it and then you have the OnStar and you set that up and all this stuff, and then it's like, and it comes with free 3 months of Disney Plus. It's not like you can just hook it up and you could just look at anything. It's already programmed with Amazon Prime, Disney Plus, Hulu, Netflix. You see what I mean? So it's all, and those things more and more, like I was listening to somebody talking about the media environment, like news media, and how like there used to be like a family would own like 2 or 3 news stations, but then these big corporations started coming in and buying up all those to the point where now all the news stations across the country are all owned by like one company or 2 companies or something. So they can take that and create a message. So you're not really getting any diversity of opinion or thought, anything those people say they value anyways.
Yeah.
You're just getting like one message from somebody whose primary motivation is just to make money at all costs. They don't really care what the consequence is, and how much of that is really just to reinforce the narrative of the pharmaceutical companies.
What's the alternative? It's like, just like Cameron was saying, you can just do that in physical reality. The people who are going to go into that are all the people who are just dreaming that they could potentially experience what we experience regularly by getting together with our local communities and our national communities. There is nothing ever that will be able to compare to a real in-person meetup ever. I don't care how great the prostitutes in the metaverse become, it will never compare to the real deal.
Hey, think about this real quick. Okay.
Wait. Let me just make sure.
Yeah. When you say real deal, what are we talking about here?
What I'm saying is, when you would watch porn online, it is not as good as developing a real relationship and having sex. And it never, ever, ever will be. In the same way that all of your physical relationships, there will never be a replacement for it. There will be a replacement for Facebook text messages and then Messenger, because now you can communicate with emojis and GIFs, and from there, video call, all that stuff, but nothing will replace in-person meeting up. Mitch, what were you going to say?
Well, I was just gonna say, yeah, how could it? Because like, let's say you're in the metaverse, right? And you want to go have sex or something. It's like, that's just this isolated moment or whatever. But you don't have a relationship with that person, right? You haven't seen them consistently over the past weeks and months. Like, you don't know what they're going through, what they're working on, the ups, downs, all that. There's so much to real physical reality because we're here. We've always been here.
Okay, here's a perfect example. Is eating in the metaverse the same as eating something in physical reality?
No, how could it be?
If your metaverse
So
character
people don't
takes-
understand that sex, for example, is the same thing. It's a physical thing that you're doing with another person. It's not just the experience in your mind.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And because of porn and the addiction to all that, people have really not, they've lost that point. Also, how are you going to go, think about this. Here it is. What's the purpose of sex?
To reproduce, make children.
That's the purpose of it. Now people say, oh, it's fun, all this stuff. Yes, okay, fine, but that's not the purpose of it. How are you going to do that? It's not possible. So the problem is, if you look at the consequence, same thing I was saying with you hook kids into it right away, they're going to get impulse with all this shit. They're not even going to be stable within themselves in any way whatsoever. They're just going to be fucked. I don't even know how to describe that to people, because you want to understand what it is, read Otherland, read Snow Crash, read 1984, read all these books so you can now visualize, because the purpose of those authors was to give you a vocabulary that you wouldn't already have. So you can see consequences potentially. Like, don't read history, read science fiction. You know, because history is just a fucking made up story about things. That's not really what happened. It's a way of shaping your view of reality.
Yeah.
But science fiction is showing you what could happen if certain things are done and certain choices are made. And I was just thinking about this, like, okay, there's a difference between physical reality and virtual reality. In virtual reality, things can happen so fast. You can be on a spaceship 1 second, and you can be in a 3-way orgy with blue aliens, and the next second, and then the next second, you're like surfing on the beach or something, you know, like you just, oh, I'm bored with that, do this. How long is it going to take before you're like, okay, I've literally done the most extreme thing I could possibly do. Now what? Now what? Now what do I do? And a book to really support your mind to be able to process that is a book called The Metamorphosis of Prime Intellect. Read that book, because it'll show you like the logical conclusion of having a digital world where you could do anything you want at any time, split second. You just think it and it happens. The logical conclusion of that is you become devoid of purpose. It doesn't mean, and I'm not justifying like you need to have physical limitations and so forth. I'm just saying we are in a physical reality that is physically real, and that is the substance from where we come. We're trying to escape that rather than understand it and develop a visceral physical understanding of what it is we actually are. We're trying to escape from it and build something where we can be totally free, instead of understanding how to have real freedom within what we really are. We're trying to get away from it. Now imagine you take a baby. Okay, so think about this. What do parents do for their children's education typically?
Put them in school.
Why?
Because it's what everybody else is doing.
It's just what you do. Like, that's just what you do. Everyone's doing it and you do it. Why you don't even question it. Okay. But we all know it doesn't educate the child.
Right.
All it does is prepare them to become a consumer. So now imagine versus what we're doing with our kids, we're actually educating them. Now imagine you take a baby, and at this point in reality, it's just normal that you take the baby and you hook them up to virtual reality right away. Then they don't have to cry. They don't have to ever have any bad experiences. Like, they're just watching movies. Like, day one, they're in virtual reality, in like floating in space with butterflies and stuff while you're at work.
Well,
you don't
while
even
you're
ever
in
have
Metaverse, getting your body mind for crypto.
Right. And you don't even have to touch the baby anymore or hold them or anything. And like, you just hook them up to a bottle that just automatically feeds them, and they're hooked up to a virtual reality where they can see you and you're in the room virtually with them, and you can mute them when they cry or whatever it is, you know.
Fuck, nice.
Like, just think about that. Like, you know, if you have a newborn baby and you put them in a room and you don't touch them, even if you feed them and everything, they die. And you might think, well, but we know that. So of course, you know, parents are going to they're going to hold their kids and kiss them and all that stuff. And I'm like, to me, having your children at home and educating them by communicating with them and being with them and all that is no different. In terms of not putting them in school. Like, when I think about putting my kids in school, I get sick to my stomach. Like, no different than I just think about like putting my kids in a locked room and not talking to them. To me, it's the same fucking thing. It's like, obviously one is totally fucked up, twisted, and sick. You wouldn't do that. You wouldn't, I wouldn't do that with my kids. Like, I just imagine my son, and I say my son specifically because he's older than my daughter, and he's at that stage, you guys know, where he can like communicate and talk. Like, and y'all noticed when y'all were here, how he was wanting to play other games with all the adults, right?
Yeah.
And he was wanting to actually play with the adults. Like, okay, now I want to be this role, or I have a suggestion, right? And you couldn't just be like, no, go away, you're the kid. It's like, he's like, no, I mean, we keep trying to persuade you, right? Imagine putting that kid in a school.
Yeah.
Like, they would just abuse him. They would tell him, sit down, shut up. They would punish him, or they would kick him out. And he's not a bad kid. He's not one of those rebels or anything like that. It's just, he would actually be so effective at communicating. Like, he doesn't have within him this point where it's like, I'm not allowed to talk about something to somebody.
Right.
That's not within him.
Mhm.
And isn't that what everybody actually wants? They want the ability to just be in reality and speak and move and express themselves. That's what everyone is like yearning for, which is why we feel this need to escape. Because we're looking for that experience of like just being able to be ourselves. But the way we've defined being ourselves is in the context of a consumer, because that's all we know. Because from the moment we were a child, we were hooked up into that system of like, this is how you express yourself through what shirt you wear and this and that, and like what toys you like and all this stuff. Is it a coincidence that you and me, Mitch, had the same experience in childhood of playing battles with our G.I. Joes and all that stuff? I used to do that with my brother too. Like, we'd have these really elaborate battles, and it'd always be like, this one guy was this guy's brother, but he didn't know it, and they betrayed him. And then suddenly it was like always like betrayal stories and stuff, right?
Oh, shit.
From watching movies. Like, when I remember, look, can somebody look up real quick? When did the movie Terminator come out? The first one. When did the movie Robocop come out? The original one. When did the movie Alien come out? Aliens.
87 is Robocop.
Robocop was 87.
Terminator's 84.
Terminator's 84. Right? I saw those movies when I was like 4 and 5 years old. And if you guys ever watch like 80s action movies, they're like gratuitous. Like, way over the top. Right? Like, can you imagine 4 and 5 years old and you're watching these movies? So of course, all that's getting programmed into me, right? But my point is, like, imagine from that time that you're little, the way you think you're supposed to express yourself is through some kind of artificial outward thing that you are participating in, rather than just being free within yourself to actually express. And the only way to do that, really, I saw a really cool quote from Bernard just the other day, and he was making this point about freedom of speech being only possible in an equal money system where you're actually free to express common sense and what is best for all. Because
your survival won't be taken away.
Right. Exactly. Because you're not allowed. I sent you guys on the Signal chat I said, I highly suggest to watch this. It was a speech from a Texas congressman who I'd never heard of before. He's only been in Congress for like a couple years, and he's from like the San Antonio-ish area. And man, it was really good. Like, he was just calling everything out and calling out Congress, like how it actually works and how people don't read the bills, and how it was really good to watch. I'm like, damn, I can't believe this guy's saying all this stuff. And you could tell he wasn't like in the club. You could tell he was like somebody who came in there recently. He was like seeing how it all works and is calling it out.
That's
right?
awesome.
It was pretty cool. I'm like, I want to get to know this guy. He seems pretty cool. He doesn't seem like one of these Dan Crenshaws where it's like they say just enough things, but really they're just part of the whole fucking thing. I mean, I don't know the guy, but I'm just saying the stuff he was saying was like legit calling it all out.
Yeah.
Kind of like what I would see myself doing if I were in that position. I would be like, all right, let's just talk about the fact that we all just left that meeting where they told us to sign this bill and we haven't read it. That's totally fucked. Mm-hmm. Like, it's a 500-page bill and none of us have read it. And you're saying we can't even read it till we read it or till we sign it. This is how all the deals are done. And you guys just can't wait to go to the bar afterwards for drinks and meet with your lobbyists and all this shit. Like, we're exposing the whole fucking thing. You know what I mean? That's kind of like what this guy was doing. It's pretty cool. But I just want to go back to this point real quick of when you look at like all the trans and the Black Lives Matter and all this stuff, it's become a point where people think that they're expressing themselves through it, because they're feeling a very actual real from a certain perspective feeling of feeling stifled and not able to express themselves as who they are, but they don't know who they are. Because like we were talking about earlier with Drake, the whole point about your language shaping everything about how you perceive everything, your language has been shaped by the context of being a consumer of things that companies are making for profit. And that's the only purpose of it. And your education is shaped in a way so you won't question that, and you'll always just feel the slight need for more. You'll never be who you are. And so all of these little things are put out there as ways to express yourself. So I see the metaverse as just another one of those things where it's like the ultimate point of, just like that CEO from Microsoft was saying, you can go in there and bring your humanity with you. How are you bringing humanity into a digital environment? That's the opposite of human reality. Human reality is physical.
Yeah.
And imagine these kids plugged into it from the very, very beginning, and they don't know anything else. And now, I mean, I wish there was a way that you could say it's just going to become the Matrix, or people would actually see that's literally what it's going to become.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Choose to not go into it and to actually have conversations about what can we do that's not actually this.
It's like the fact that there's the movie The Matrix makes it easy for us to have a visual reference of that's what it's going to become. But it also is a catch-22 because it's like, well, but that was just a movie, guys. Like, come on, that was just a movie.
Yeah.
And it's like, so was Star Trek. It was just a movie and a TV show, and they had those little communicators where people were like, come on, that's just a movie. You could never have that. And now we have fucking cell phones and shit. Like, that stuff is real. It was just someone being able to see where things were going. Can you see the point where people start plugging into the Matrix? They never leave their home again.
So like I'm door knocking with my brochures and have my team of people to sell them on.
Well, that's the whole point, is like the physical reality is actually what people need. It's not just what they want, because what they want is manipulated. You can't manipulate what you need. Does that make sense? You can manipulate what you want, but you can't manipulate what you need. Like you can manipulate somebody into wanting sex with, 30 women of all different things and like, on a fucking space station or something. Like you can manipulate that through imagery, but you can't change the fact that the person needs to have sex physically. Because and if you think it has the prevalence of free ubiquitous porn been an empowering thing for men?
No.
It has been extremely weakening because it's not real.
Yeah.
It's not a real physical thing. Just like having access to fast food all the time, which is a simulation of food, is not empowering to human beings' physical bodies. Right? Same thing with the whole thing with the virus and all that stuff. They're simulating immunity. They're simulating upgrades, but it's not real. It's not going to be empowering. It's going to make us more and more dependent. Somebody's making this point. This guy, Fauci, right, has been in that National Institutes of Health and Allergies or whatever the fuck it's called.
Yeah, infectious.
But he's in charge of allergies, like allergic responses, like allergic reactions, like all of that side of things. So think about it. Think about this. Not just diseases that come and start attacking us. Allergic responses to things. And think about people who are like your grandparents and older. Those people were not allergic to shit. And how many people our age and younger are allergic to shit?
Yeah.
I heard it's 1 in 34. I was talking to someone.
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
Yeah, it was like, it used to be like 1 in 5,000 or 1 in 10,000 or something. And the older generations, now it's like 1 in 34 kids have.
Okay. So think about that. The guy who's in charge of the whole fucking pandemic response, blah, 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 in the US and all that, and is basically leading the world within it, is the guy who's been in charge of the allergy, response thing in our fucking country for the last 30 years, where we've seen everybody become allergic to fucking everything.
Yeah.
Like, do you get it? This guy doesn't fucking work for you. He works for the corporations. He's there to help them sell more products. It's like somebody said it on one of his videos I was watching. The guy said, I was like, that guy on a Temples thing, he said, it's like the rainmaker selling umbrellas. Do you know what I mean? That's what's going on. And so the same principle applies with the metaverse. Microsoft is not about empowering you, the actual human being life. It's about you. It's empowering you as a consumer for enterprises. That's how they even say it. So this thing is not going to be a world. Even what it's being presented as is not what it is. Even if there was value in this digital world where you can do whatever you want, even if that was valuable, that's not what it's going to be anyways. It's like literally someone's like, hey, come to my paradise where it's a free buffet at all times and fun and games and everything, do anything you want. And you come in and they fucking lock the prison door.
Yeah.
And they were like, oh no, that's your buffet. The really nice one, you have to upgrade and pay for that. And you're like, what? That's really what it is.
You just get corn. Just corn.
Just get cornholed as soon as you walk in.
Yeah.
Somebody said, I heard somebody say, they said, just because you can play basketball doesn't make it less of a prison.
Wow.
You know, because they're talking about the quarantine camps in Australia. They were like, yeah, but it's like nice. And it's like, yeah, but they have basketball in prison. Like, you can't fucking leave if you want to leave though.
Yeah.
What were you saying? Robert Kennedy Jr. is releasing a book called The Real Anthony Fauci.
Yeah, I just ordered it and it was like out of stock. They were like, we don't know when it'll be delivered. And I just got a thing that's coming like this week, I think.
Oh, nice.
So that'll be interesting. Yeah.
What, and you want to just share like a bit about what's the book about?
It's about
Anthony Fauci,
He's a real person.
doctor.
Hero.
It's gonna be
That's what I
memoir.
heard. He's a hero.
He's a hero.
says
He's the Pope. He is science. I don't know if you knew
That
that.
was
I believe
yeah,
in science.
You believe in, then you believe in Dr. Anthony Fauci.
well, the tagline for it is Bill Gates, Big Pharma, and the global war on democracy and public health. Pharma-funded mainstream media has convinced millions of Americans that Dr. Anthony Fauci is a hero. He is anything but. It's saying what I was saying. As director of the National Institute of Allergy and Infectious Diseases, Dr. Fauci dispenses $6.1 billion in annual taxpayer-funded or provided funding for scientific research, allowing him to dictate the subject, content, and outcome of scientific health research across the globe. He uses the financial clout at his disposal to wield extraordinary influence over hospitals, universities, journals, and thousands of influential doctors and scientists whose careers and institutions he has the power to ruin, advance, or reward. In early 2000, Fauci shook hands with Bill Gates in the library of Gates' $147 million Seattle mansion, cementing a partnership that would aim to control an increasingly profitable $60 billion global vaccine enterprise with unlimited growth potential. No one's talking about that. I hadn't heard that before. Through funding, leverage, and carefully cultivated personal relationships with heads of state and leading media and social media institutions, the Pharma-Fauci Gates alliance exercises dominion over global health policy. That actually makes a lot of sense. You know, that whole, I forget the name of it. There's like the Vaccine Global Alliance and all this stuff. And,
Yeah, Gavi.
yeah, I'm talking about. Yeah. So, wow. In early 2000s. And then suddenly, I mean, think about the timing. Suddenly 2019 comes, they do that exercise, and then there's the pandemic. And then suddenly Microsoft, who started Microsoft, right? They're suddenly going, hey, we've always wanted to enter this digital world, and now the possibility is finally here. And I'm like, imagine if they had done this before there was no pandemic, nothing like that. Would people have just been like,
No way. No way.
You can go to Justin Bieber's concert in real life versus when he's holding his VR experience. He's already had Justin Bieber concerts in the metaverse.
Right. And you feel safer because there's not anyone going to breathe on you.
Wait, he's already had it. And so like there's already the metaverse is already a thing now.
Yeah.
I didn't even know that. I thought it was just like coming soon.
And you can see it. There's like fireworks all the fucking time, and it's like he's on a fucking spaceship. He's on this thing. There's a little trailer. Look it up.
You see, it's like that's gonna cycle so quickly.
Mhm.
How it's gonna be a point where it's like, what can you fucking do next?
Right.
You have to live like the elite. The point that you're making about that you're going to run out of stuff to give you energy and you're going to take it to the most extreme thing. It's exactly what happens. That's already what happened here. So
What's going to happen is people are going to get tired of it and then they want to go back into physical reality, and then they're going to be really fucked, and they're going to want to abuse people in the physical reality.
Yeah.
Because they're still going to be looking for that extreme energy high.
Yeah.
So they're going to realize, they're going to within themselves think like, oh, I got to like abuse people in physical reality to get some sense of physical reality.
Yeah.
Because your physical experience, you still can't compare your digital extraction to like a physical extraction.
Well, and you've gotten so extreme away from your source of what you really are that you're like, now I just need to fucking
Yeah.
So what we're talking about, man, we can go into that a little bit, is like we're doing everything within balance, like physical meetups, hanging out, having fun in a balanced way where it's not overly emotional, energetic, hyped up, all that stuff. You can still have fun and express yourself.
And howl, you know, like
howl like coyotes.
Coyotes are on a fire.
This is interesting.
Okay, how about this? Okay, why don't you guys talk about y'all's weekends? I don't mean to interrupt you, but you can finish that. But I would like you guys to talk about all that stuff too.
Let me just say this real quick, right? So I found some article, probably some fucking bullshit article, obviously. It's like third down on Google. But it's titled, "I am furious about how much I enjoyed Justin Bieber's Metaverse concert." And it shows like a picture from it, whatever. But he goes,
they liked it so much they got angry.
Yeah.
Right. It's like they're just playing on
I loved it so much.
Just sound fucking confused. But he goes, that's because it's hard to tell exactly how much of the event was smoke and mirrors. Was Justin actually singing or lip syncing to a pre-recorded track? His voice sounded awfully pristine and he was never out of breath. Was his motion captured live or were we watching a recording? Chat bubbles from viewers appeared throughout the stream, but were they genuine or pre-written by event organizers? Right. So do you see how there's this inherent confusion within everything? It's not fucking real.
And actually, it's interesting. They're like, how much of it was real? And I'm like, you're in the metaverse, dude.
That was saying a while back about how it was some Russian documentary about how much of the comments is like fake. It's just bots, but you can't even tell the amount of posts that are fake. It's like now go into the metaverse, because I think we were talking about, I don't know, having sex with some person in the metaverse or whatever. You know, in this movie, Free Guy, right? The one that you recommended, Mitch, that's the one we ended up watching.
You watch it?
Yeah.
It's kind of okay.
And it's like the girl, she falls in love with this guy, but he's a non-playable character. Right? And she's like, oh, we should like meet up in person. This is like it's a minor part of the story.
But she doesn't know he's an NPC?
Yeah.
Right away, she doesn't.
And the reason why is because they had created this code that was so advanced, it became an artificial intelligence. So the non-playable character became like a playable character. And people are like,
but he didn't have a physical reference.
Exactly. So she's like, oh, should meet in person.
Have you guys seen her?
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
No, I haven't actually.
Okay, that's one you should watch with me.
I got it. That's a good one, actually. It's
a really good one.
Yeah, I've wanted to watch that for a long time, so that'll be good.
Mitchell's face is like, is it?
Did you watch it, Mitchell?
Did you watch that at the Copes that one time?
We did. We watched it together.
We did, but I think y'all had fallen asleep.
You guys went to sleep, and it was like Mitch and Jess and I continued to watch it, and we were like, "What?"
Yeah, I was like, I don't know. I like Free Guy more than her.
Really?
I would definitely. Haven't seen her. I've seen the.
I think you would like it, Asa.
For the context, I think I would like her much more for sure. But anyways, the context there is like, she's like, we should meet up in person, and he's like, or like in the real world, and he's like, like,
oh fuck, she's like fucking matrixing this guy,
and that's what we're right.
It's like a new form of gaslighting.
Exactly, gaslighting the fuck out of him, right? But the point is, you will not be able to tell who's real and who's not real, just like you can't right now on Facebook.
Yeah.
Well, that's in that book, Otherland, they have people called citizens. And then they have, I forget the term they use for people who are not real. There's like a name for it, but I just don't remember what it is. And it's like impolite. It's considered like kind of impolite to ask somebody if they're a citizen or not. Because it's like, if they are, it's kind of like you couldn't tell. So it's like rude, right?
But, do you think there will be something, right? Because you know how a lot of people are like, well, the blockchain is like this distributed ledger and you can verify that things are actually true. it's like, I'm giving a very crude explanation of it, but do you think there will be then something like that to then verify, like, is this person actually real? Some sort of like trust network. I don't know how you would do that or if that's even possible, but you wonder if there's like a counterbalancing force of like the confusion with a like a verifying thing.
Here's my question though. Okay, I was thinking about this. If everything is so free and open on this fucking metaverse, right? And no one has any property and no one needs money according to like, like the socialists, right? Even though they haven't created a system that actually is best. Why do you even need people in the metaverse?
What do you mean?
Like, what's the point of having people in it? Couldn't you just have like bots and shit? Like what? Like why would it even matter?
Oh, sure.
Like, isn't the point of it you're trying to sell something to somebody?
Yeah.
But if they're spending all their time in the fucking metaverse, like what are they doing in the outside world that's somehow creating value? Is it literally just everybody's just making digital artwork for each other in the fucking metaverse?
That
Like,
doesn't make sense.
what are people doing who don't work in the physical world? How are they in any way contributing to the metaverse? How are they even consuming it if they're not making money in the physical world? There's some kind of like built-in thing, that inconsistency that doesn't make sense to me.
Oh, no, it's okay.
Like okay, there's a lot of teenagers on Instagram, yeah, but because they don't have to work, their parents provide for them, they just go to school and they don't have to work.
Maybe it's a basic
but if
income.
you're an adult and you're on Instagram, you have to have a job to pay for your internet. You see what I'm saying?
Okay, but this is how you actually distribute like a universal basic income, but like instead of it actually being something that, I'm guaranteed to get this, it's you have to participate in the metaverse in order to get it, and then you spend all your money back in the metaverse. So it's like it's a self-feeding type of like, here's how we can pay everybody and keep our money too.
That'd be crazy,
right?
But Cam, that's like, in terms of it being a complete 100% ecosystem where you would just go there and live your life there. There's a little bit more time to get there. And in the meantime, we're going to see mechanisms about how you can make money in the metaverse for sure.
Because you're going to be doing stuff like support and like just bullshit jobs like we have today.
But people still have to physically eat.
Yeah, that's true.
So someone's going to have to be physically in the physical world doing those things. So you can't just be in there.
For sure. But that's not what it's supposed to be right now, right? Like,
yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, it's not supposed to be like you just spend your whole life there yet.
Oh, by the way, I want to make another quick book recommendation before we, because I was reading this book called Ben Sinister, right, by this author named Nabokov. I don't know if I'm saying it right. It's a Russian guy. I don't think it was translated. I think it's like he wrote it in English, if I'm not mistaken, because it's pretty obviously not a translation. It was, I read it because it was the name of an album that I liked by a band that I like. Anyways, so it's really cool though, because it's about this guy who lives in a dictatorship, and like the dictatorship has like a leader that everybody follows and everything. And then like, I don't know the whole story yet, but there's this scene where the guy has to go, his wife dies, and then he has to go from one part of the city to another across a bridge. And when he gets to the first part of the bridge, the guys give him a really hard time. They're like, let me see your pass. And they barely like let him go. And then he goes across to the other side. When he gets to the other side, there's obviously different soldiers on that side. And they're like, you can't come through because you didn't get your pass signed by the people over there. Right. And so it's like this whole, it's kind of like a sort of funny book. And it's like this whole back and forth about it. So he has to go back across and the guys don't recognize him. And it's just this whole thing. But I'm like, this guy grew up in Russia, right? Like he grew up in an environment where it was like that. And now we're creating that environment again. It's just like, that's one of the values of reading books, because you start to see like, oh, I can see where this is going. So imagine a person going like, I mean, vaccine passports, I don't know, what's the big deal? And it's like, have you not fucking ever read anything or like understood the context for that? Instead, it's like they're totally brand new. Like, oh, a thing that controls whether you're allowed to go in somewhere or not. Nothing can go wrong with that. No, the authorities would never use that. It's like literally you go through life and you think that the system is like your friend.
Oh, want to hear something fascinating? I don't know where I heard it from, so I hope it's not from a source that we all heard it from. But I guess we're doing this podcast for other people, so I guess it's for the listeners.
Apparently. We don't even know if other people exist.
That's true. They could all just be bots who are commenting that they want the intro to be quieter, so don't listen to them.
Well, we have to make it loud so that the bots, it's like fucks with
that's the captcha.
That's actually the reason why we did it.
That's the captcha, right? To prove that you're
Yeah.
So in a crisis situation, people don't freak out. Like an example is like in a plane crash, we can't even remember in Black Mirror when the mom
Mitch doesn't.
No, I have no idea what you're talking about.
But in Black Mirror, in one of the episodes, the mom gets a chip implanted in the girl and her daughter, and she can see what the daughter can see. And whenever the daughter is watching something gruesome or sexual or anything,
she can blur it out.
Vision, so she never sees it, right? So in one part, either the mom or somebody else is dying, but she set the parental control really high, the sensitivity really high. So anything that scary that she saw, it gets blurred out. So she's like, oh no, the world's beautiful kind of thing. So somebody's dying, somebody's having a heart attack and he's dying, but it just gets blurred for her. So she's like,
oh, look at this guy breakdancing. So cool. She thinks like a busker on the street, like doing some kind of street performance.
Yeah.
The guy's like,
but no, she's like the guy's dying and she's like grandpa or like whoever, like what's happening? And then he dies, right? Yeah. So she couldn't scream and call for somebody, right? So the fascinating point is it's how we've been so sheltered. We can't see problems in the world. We can't handle stress, all these points. Real life, switch over to real life. We were just in the metaverse. Now we're back into reality. In a plane crash, people don't do anything. There's like 30% or some amount of people in a plane crisis. They just sit there and burn to death. They're like, they can't even process that there's a crisis happening because they're so sheltered and there's nothing wrong and everything always works out. Like, it's okay. That's what's happening right now with the pandemic. You see what I'm saying? It's like the world is fucking burning. The plane is on fire. It's destroyed. And you're like, no. Like, I'm strapped in. I got my seatbelt on. Someone's going to, like, we're taken care of. There you go, Cam. Go.
Did you guys hear this thing about the drowning rat experiment? I don't know if I told y'all about it. I heard it on Tim Pool.
Oh, yeah.
You heard that where they did these experiments where they took a rat and they put it in water. So it's like drowning. And then after 6 minutes or whatever the number was, it'll stop struggling. It'll just give up and die. Right. Which is like what would happen. Right. So then what they did was right when they did it again, and right when the rat stops struggling, they take it out, like they save it. So it's like, oh, okay, I'm saved. And then what they'll do is they'll put it back in and it'll struggle for something like 6 hours or 60 hours or some.
No, it goes for like 3 days.
Whatever. Yeah. That's what I'm saying. Yeah. Like it'll keep, because it's thinking eventually somebody will save me. You see what I mean? Whoa. And he was using it as a way of explaining how in the beginning, when they locked everybody down and then they took the restrictions off, like, oh, we're back to normal, guys. And then everyone's like, cool. Okay. So when they lock us down, it's fine. Well, eventually it's not a big deal. And then it's like, okay, now we're going to lock you down again and we're never going to take it off again. And the people are going to keep going along, going like, oh, but eventually, if we just keep going along and we keep taking this and this and this, we'll eventually, and it's like, no, that's what we've been saying is like, it's not going back to normal.
Dude, thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, now I see why that's fascinating.
I thought what I thought the outcome was going to be was they put the rat back on the water and he gives up in like a minute, like 20 seconds. Right. So I just get saved right away. But that's really, really fucking fascinating because a lot of people are talking about moving to Florida. I'll just say this really briefly, Mitch, keep your point. A lot of people are talking about moving to Florida and they're like, there's some people who are not sure, like things will get better. I'm like, no, it's not going to get better. And I'm not saying you should wear blah, blah, blah. I'm just saying on that particular point, it's not going to get better. And that experiment is a really good way of describing what's going on. That's really cool.
Dude, that I just want to say real quick, that thing I told you guys to watch about that congressman from Texas. Uh-huh. I was listening to it in the background last night while I was working on the computer. And there was this point where as I'm listening to it, and I'm not focusing on it, I'm just hearing, and he's talking about how the government is overstepping, and it's like he's talking about the vaccine mandates and all the stuff with OSHA and all these things that are happening, and like how, and I'm listening to it and I'm like, oh fuck, man, this is exactly what was being said back in like 1776 when they were like, dude, this king, man, he's like totally fucking overstepped his bounds, like he can't be doing this stuff. And then the guy, as soon as I thought that, the guy starts like making references to King George and stuff.
Wow.
And I'm like, oh fuck, man.
Wow.
Like that's actually what's happening is we've now entered a phase like where everyone has accepted that we just have a king that fucking dictates everything. Now it's like before it's always been that way, but it wasn't pushed until now. Like it wasn't, because people say like, when did things change in the media? When did it become so corrupt? And I'm like, what the fuck are you talking about? It's always been that way. It's just never been pushed to a point where it's obvious. But when Trump came in and was like, I'm just going to go in here and do what I'm going to do. And I'm a normal person, normal from a certain perspective, right? But I'm not a politician who wants to play the politician game. I want to do my own thing. They were like, no, we can't do that. Like, we can't allow people to stand up and to like actually start the average person having a say in reality. Then it was like, over time, let's get everything going. Okay, let's get that thing coming in. Let's push everybody into the digital world, control everything. Let's just justify it even more. And whether Trump was an unwitting participant in that or not, I don't know. But the point is, it was kind of like the catalyst, because it was someone coming up and saying like, hey, let's actually rise up and have a really amazing physical reality. That's what he was saying. So we have all this great technology that you can use in reality, like whatever, all kinds of stuff. And yet it was used as a way of justifying everything that we're seeing now. And I'm just seeing like, man, it's exactly what was going on back then. People were seeing, they were being pushed to the breaking point, and then people were like, no, we can't have one person who's the dictator. So anyways, I just want to throw out there. I really suggest people to watch that. You could, I'll look it up while you guys are talking so I can.
Yeah, we can throw it in the description. I wanted to say this though, on, because I mean, that's phenomenal comparison right there of how it is like, you know, King George and, you know, that era of the birth of the US. What I see with this rat experiment is like, I see how it can be used toward that, people just going into accepting lockdown even more. But also I see that part within me of all the times that I've struggled, where I've been like going and going, and then it's like, I want to give up, but then something happens where I make it through and I get to that next level. And then now it's like I can expand and take on more. And then I'll just keep fucking fighting and just going and going and going. And it might seem like, you know, gonna fucking die or whatever, but then you get to that next level. And so it's also, we can use that same awareness of there's like something inherent within us as life, when we know that, hey, I can break through limitation, you know, whether I'm aware of how I did it or not, it's like, you can get through. Now you use that for more and more stuff. And so what I see is, it looks as though the situation that we find ourselves in is pretty fucking bleak. Like the metaverse, people are hopeless. People can't even understand what's going on, right? Reality's not looking too great. There's a lot of abuse, everything happening in the world. It's like an all-time high of how fucked it is. And you even have people, like the other week I talked to this guy who's affluent guy. He's business partners with one of the people that we work with. And he's telling me, he's like, yeah, overall, like the literacy rates are getting better. People are getting smarter. Khan Academy is doing great stuff. I'm like, you're out of touch with fucking reality, buddy. But
well, what's interesting about Khan Academy is all it is just people talking about school fucking curriculum.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, so basically we're getting better at delivering school curriculum content. Great. What fucking problem does that solve?
Yeah, there's no actual education in there into how
like Bill Gates didn't fucking build Microsoft from reading about it in a fucking book in school.
I can say so much about Khan Academy, and
yeah.
like,
I mean, their videos are good. Like when you're trying to learn a particular subject matter, there's nothing wrong with that, but that doesn't change your fucking ability to process.
Their videos are really great, but what kids actually understand from it, they can't.
Right, that's what I'm saying. Yes,
it's not doing.
Their videos are good if you have a high vocabulary and you can process it and so forth. It doesn't solve that problem. Doesn't solve the vocabulary problem.
Exactly. And so that's right. That's a situation we find ourselves in where people are thinking that they see the solutions and shit like that. But in reality, they're just going.
That's what I'm saying. Like this guy, it's like he thinks, oh, just leave it. That's fine. It's solving the problem. And again,
Yeah.
we're not dissing it. It's just, no, there's a fundamental problem that's not being solved. You can't just be like, oh, but Khan Academy. It's like, hold on a second. If Khan Academy is the solution, then there was never a problem.
Right.
Because guess what existed before Khan Academy?
Textbooks.
Yeah, books. Why can't the kid just read the book?
Mhm.
No, I needed someone to explain what's in the book. Like, but then either they're not understanding what's in the book because someone's having to explain it to them, or it was just a replacement of the book. What it is it's something that looks really cool to the adult.
Mhm.
Where they're like, oh, since my kid can't read the book, at least someone can tell him what's in the book. But they're not processing the fact that, how am I going to explain to you if you're like, I don't understand calculus? Well, I'm just going to explain it to you then. Like, when I explain it, you're going to be like, still don't understand. Like, you can memorize how to do that one problem, but that doesn't mean you understand it. Like, you can now go solve more problems and come up with new theories and shit. You're literally, all you're doing is doing what the tutor does, which is helping them memorize how to pass the test, to get the certification, to move on to the next point, but you didn't fucking learn anything.
Yeah. Yeah. You can't even interact with that. You can't even interact with that child. Like, dude, actually, I was talking to a family this weekend and they were asking me, hey, did you do like some specific tutor training? And I'm like, no. Well, how do you know what to do with these kids? Like, how are you so good with it, is what they were asking me. And I was like, well, one thing that I did for myself with doing this process, doing Destiny, becoming a Techno Tutor distributor, is I had to look up all the information, right? Oh, really specifically with like reading the blogs, Heaven's Journey to Life and Creation's Journey to Life. If you're listening to this and you're not reading those blogs, you got to go check out those blogs, right? But reading those blogs helped me to realize where when I would be reading something and all of a sudden, like, my mind's wandering. I'm like, oh, I'm not focused here on the page. I missed something. Where did I lose track? And then I've got to go back and reread. And as I'm reading, I'm like, oh, something in here is not making sense. And I've got to pinpoint what is that word that I'm like, I don't understand, or that phrase that I don't understand. And then I would put that into my Techno Tutor and then come back and like, I could suddenly understand everything that I'm reading. Right. And I realized the same thing with students. It's like, what is the missing piece for them? Like, that's what has to happen is you have to be able to see that either for yourself or for the child that, your child, that you're teaching. And then you have to actually give them the vocabulary so they can understand it. That's what
which giving them the vocabulary specifically means putting it in via Techno Tutor.
It's a Techno Tutor.
It's not enough to just explain it.
No, because that's not giving them the vocabulary.
Also, the parent doesn't have the vocabulary. Like, how are you going to give the vocabulary of calculus to your child if you don't know calculus?
Yeah.
How are you going to give a child vocabulary beyond what you have? You can't. Right? And how do you give them enough vocabulary by the time they're 7 years old? If you're just doing it through word of mouth, if you're just talking to them,
right? You're
going to sit down and explain all that? No. It's like now Max is 5 and he's already going back through the levels himself. Oh, and also what was really interesting is 2 nights ago, Max was in our bed. Sydney had already fallen asleep and he came into our bed with me and Katie and we were both reading. And Max was alternately taking our books. Katie had Otherland, and she let him read from it out loud. And then he took that Robocop novel that I was reading, and he started reading that out loud. And he can fucking read them. And he's even reading with like emphasis and like inflection and so forth, right? And I was like, it was one of those moments where it's like, I wish I had recorded it, but at the same time, like it was just a moment where just like let it be kind of a thing, Plus we didn't have our phone. We don't keep our phones in the bedroom, but it was really interesting because when he reads, he's not just like And then the man said he went to, you know what I mean? He's like, he's saying it as if, just like when I would read it to myself, like how I would say it. Like he has the vocabulary of what those words are and how they're used and so forth.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I mean, he's like actually processing it.
Mhm.
And I'm not saying he understands all the context and everything. Of course not. There's a lot of context he doesn't have yet. Right. But for the most part, he can read that stuff. That's a pretty fucking, I mean, Nabokov is like high fucking literature, you know, like Nobel Prize level shit. It's not like he's some little kid's novel or a kid's book, right?
Mhm.
It's pretty amazing just because we're putting the words in physically with TechnoTutor.
Mhm.
So Khan Academy is the metaverse of education. TechnoTutor is the physical reality.
And why is that significant as like physical reality? Because like just over the weekend, Mitch, you had an event, right? We had an event at the Speyhars, and man, one thing that I realized was just how much fun we're having, right? How much fun we're having and how real the relationships that we built are. They're more so real than the friendships that I used to have before. That like I was explaining this to Asif of how, okay, I need to go back to all my friends and really share with them what TechnoTutor is. Now that I have even more context for it, but because look at how, you know, if you watched a good movie or whatever, how you would share that with your friends, right? And you'd be like, oh no, you really got to go see it. But then if you were to profit off of them going to see that movie, if you make money, all these programs start running within you, and then you're like, you just stay silent about it. And it's still the thing that you want, you know, that you know they would love or whatever, but you're not actually pushing it in that way to them. They think, oh, it must not be that good, right? And what I was sharing with Asif more specifically was just this point of how we push each other, how we challenge each other, how we can have so much fun within what we're doing. And I used to have a lot of fun with my friends before TechnoTutor, but we weren't actually challenging each other. We didn't actually care. We were all doing our own separate thing. We were all in our own minds. Nobody was supporting me to like walk through my own thoughts, my own mind, and like come out on the other side and be here in physical reality, you know, to the extent that now I'm like, holy shit, how much my life has changed and how much I've changed within myself, and how I'm supporting other people and they're, you know, reporting back saying, dude, I changed that. Like, thank you so much. And it's another fucking level. It's different. You haven't experienced this. Guaranteed. Like Cam, you said earlier about how you can't know what it's like unless you experience it, because this is something that is so different and so beyond what people think reality is, you know? And so, but that can only come from like spending time with somebody, developing that relationship. You see their mannerisms, their physical movements, you gain trust with them, and they know that you're not saying this maliciously. You know, they know that you're actually there to support them. It may come off really harsh and really challenging, you know.
We're at such a fork in the road with reality because things take time to build. And what I mean by that is, if you start when you already have kids and they're already, you know, growing 50, yeah, if your kids are already
living in your basement,
it's too late, right?
It's too late for your kids.
But you can just see, for example, somebody picking this up when their kids are already 5, 10, 15, whatever, the amount that they have to go through, it's in some cases irreparable. And so what I'm saying is, use that for those people who are in a position right now who don't have children yet, or who haven't created a lot of consequences for themselves yet, and you're still trying to figure out what you should do. You need to start this process far in advance of you taking on real responsibility. I remember when, Cameron would talk about having a family and all that stuff. And I'd be like, within myself, I would be like, that's not stimulating. Like, that's not a cool purpose. That's not a big purpose to have a family. But he would talk a lot about it, about like, this is why nobody has purpose. But then I realized, well, what's my purpose now? If like the reality of my purpose, not what I say it is, but what's the reality of my purpose? Oh, it's just me. It's just figure my own shit out. And a family is just a bigger purpose than the one that I have now. And I'm saying that it's not stimulating enough. No, it's just because I'm afraid of taking on that responsibility. It's the same thing when you have a partner. You don't want to get a partner. If you don't want to get into a relationship, it's because you don't want to be responsible or considerate of two people. So how the fuck are we going to have an equal money system? That's you. If you don't want to get into a relationship, you are giving permission to an abusive world. You're giving permission to the elite because you're saying, I don't want to have to consider more than just myself. I can't consider somebody else and give to somebody else. Therefore, it's cool if the elite think like that too. That's what you're giving your acceptance to. So the point with that is there's a lot you're going to have to work through in regards to being able to raise effective children, to understand all the limitations of yelling at your child, trying to enforce things upon your child and different things like that. But also in being in a relationship, it's not easy because we have horrible communication. You have no idea what communicate. Everybody says this. What is the number one thing a relationship needs? Communication, but you have no idea all the things that are happening inside of you in relation to something until you've walked this process with Techno Tutor for an elongated period of time. There is no replacement. You can't jump from spaceship to on the beach like in the metaverse. Just like in the metaverse, maybe you'll be able to just do something and buy experience points where you can level up or whatever. You can't do that in real life. You have to physically walk the process. If you want your metaverse character to get big and jacked, yeah, maybe there's something you can buy to just look big and jacked. But in real life, you can't do that. There's no shortcut. It's the same thing for building a relationship. It's the same thing for building a business. It's the same thing for you being able to become a better human being. There's no shortcut. So what I'm saying is don't wait till you need it because you've now experienced all the consequences of you fucking around and not having a real purpose. And now, because you're so programmed for survival, you're like, okay, now I see the value of what you guys are doing because my child is not responsive to me anymore. They don't listen to me anymore. And I don't know what to do. And I feel lost because my job just fired me because I don't want to take the vaccine or whatever the case may be. It's too late. You can't undo the damage. But moving forward, you can make it way better than if you were to accept the path that you were going down.
Yeah, so somebody already in that situation, you can choose to now not keep doing the damage and make it better.
Mm-hmm.
But don't wait and just be like, I'll do it later.
Now, for those people,
it won't be like what you wanted.
Exactly. For those people who are like, oh my God, I feel so guilty. Don't feel guilty. Don't get emotional about it because I know I was really fucked up as a kid and my parents never supported me. So even if you fucked up your kid, quote, I'm doing air quotes, right? What I mean by that is even if your child turns 7, 10, 15, but you support them to really understand these tools, there's still going to be more, they're still going to be ahead of Cameron.
It is what it is. And don't use your guilt as a way not to just correct yourself now. That's the problem with the guilt.
Guilt doesn't show that you're a good person.
Use the guilt to be like, all right, I'm going to change now.
Exactly.
But don't dwell in it. Hey, I really want to, because we're going to run out of time eventually. Like, I really want to hear about y'all's weekends because I already heard a little bit, but I want people to get a little taste of like some of kind of what y'all are doing. And yeah, because we kind of usually do talk about that.
Yeah, like I'll just jump in here. So if anyone saw the vlog I made recently before the last Techno Tutor trip one,
I like the callback joke that you put in there with Seth.
Yeah.
So like who it is, and he was like, "Hey," that was hilarious.
And that was showing that we upgraded our office because we literally ran out of room because we had too many people coming, which is great. And that took time to build, right? Like Asif was just saying, like you have to walk the process.
Oh, I thought you were talking about the Texas video. That's what I was thinking of.
Oh, no. So I'm saying now, even right, the older one where we show like, hey, here we were, now we're here. So we just had our inaugural event there, and it was led by Pedro, who's a licensed distributor with TechnoTutor. He's been around for, year and a half, and it's really cool to see him grow. I mean, he's 19. He looks like a freaking politician. Like he's got the look, everything, and he truly cares. I mean, I've really got to know the guy, and he puts himself out there. So he ran this meetup, or the clubhouse on, and he gave it was this really cool exercise that he got people to do, where everyone had a piece of paper and they got to look at what in their life they were unhappy with, and like what just sucked about the reality. And then like he guided them through a process to look at like what it could turn into, what's getting in the way, and then gave some practical advice. And really at the end of every one of these clubhouses, it really brings people to a crossroads where you can say, okay, well, you can just keep going back to your life and be isolated and, thinking you're growing, but not really, or you can really plug in to this system that we have. The choice is yours, but we're going to show you why this community is awesome. It's specifically the tools we use, and then the journey of using the tools over that extended amount of time, being part of a community, and then bringing more people into it, and how fulfilling that is, how much money you can make, just all around. It's truly a win-win-win. So that was awesome. He went for like hour and a half, 2 hours, had all sorts of personalities in the room, a lot of newcomers, some people adding to the conversation, some people detracting, and just Pedro handled it very well. And then so that was cool. And then afterwards we hung out for like another hour and a half, 2 hours in the space. And then we're like, we got to get back to our place, because we had a smaller group coming over of like specifically TechnoTutor people, or people who were like, hey, I want to see how this thing really works and all that. And that was, and even on the way back, I was traveling with Seth and Amy, and they're also distributors here in Minneapolis. And we were just talking and really seeing what this is morphing into. Because at the end, I go in with a piece of paper and I say, hey, anyone who liked this and you want to be added to we use Telegram, it's this chat service to stay in touch for future events, like come up here and sign paper. And every time, I never really know how many people are going to actually sign it because they're interested. And we had like the whole page full. The people are like, this was awesome. Like brand new people that I'd never met. They're like, oh yeah, I met Eric, or someone told me to come here. And they're like, yes, please keep me updated. Like, when is the next one? So that is great, right? There's clearly demand for this. And then just seeing in the aftermath, then we had people come over to our house too, play some games, have some dinner, and keep talking. And we went till 2 a.m. And that is, and there are people that have been in the community for a long time who haven't fully made that jump to say, you know what, I want to get TechnoTutor for myself. I want to really do this. Like, I want to be ready because I want to have kids in 2 years or whatever. Like, I'm ready to take this on. And some of those people that were even longer on the fence have now been like, yo, I've seen what you've been doing. I can tell it's real. I can tell you're not just doing this for money. You're not just doing it for the hype. I can see how you're going to be around it long, or doing this long term. Like, I'm in. And then you have other people who are brand new and they're like, yo, sign me up today.
Yeah.
But that's the beauty of the system. And that's why I've been so consistent with it. I never let myself miss a week. I mean, unless I'm traveling or something. Like, it doesn't matter how I feel. It doesn't matter how busy of a day I have. I make time for what's important and what matters. And the clubhouse matters. We have our core group, and it's been awesome to see it grow, because now we got the next wave come in. And this is just one more point I want to add is, again, it reminds me of that rat experiment where they made it through, and then they realized then they can go for like way more time, like considerably more, effort and output. Because I've seen it enough with the meetup, with Clubhouse, where it would grow and then it would kind of like waver because I wasn't super consistent and I just didn't have a good structure for it. It was on me. But then powered through, and then it got bigger, and then it would waver a little bit, and then it got even bigger. And then now I'm just hitting these points where it's like, okay, we have a whole month of events now, probably factoring in the virtual hangout for Self-Perfected. There's like probably 10 different options for people to plug in and see what we're about just in December. And I now see how it's like you see, okay, who shows up? And then there's that part of your mind that you can use it to your advantage, but it's like that part of like doubt. But it's not like a doubt of like, I doubt it's going to work. It's like, no, I'm like not fully seeing how it's going to grow. But I just know if I show up and I do my best and in my self-honesty, I actually give it my best, people show up. I've seen it now enough over the past, year and a half, 2 years of doing this, that every time more people are going to show up, it's going to keep growing. Like it's bigger than me. It's bigger than any one of us. It has taken on a life of its own because it's just life itself. And we're really tapping into that in the real reality. So now compare that, right, with if I just had a Metaverse concert and some people show up and you can't even tell who's a fucking bot, right? And you're hanging out and it's like you can just, I would hope you would see the obviousness of which one is actually better and truly fulfilling. Right. And now this one, look at with depth of vision with each of them. One is the Metaverse. Depth of vision of that is more confusion, more uncertainty, more quicker, just jumping from thing to thing, trying to get the dopamine hit, which just sounds like an actual hell that you get addicted to, versus real reality, where now what's this with depth of vision, right? We now have kids. Those kids are then super genius, right? We have property. We can travel, right? We can do all this stuff together. And then those kids start to play together and then they develop their friendships and their passions and their skills like that. That's what we're doing, right? That's what the clubhouse is. But I'll tell you this, if I was not a Technotutor distributor, I'm specifically an area distributor. If I wasn't that, I wouldn't be able to, I'm not going to say I wouldn't be able to, but it's like that being a distributor was me proving to myself I'm willing to take this responsibility for this whole city, this whole county, to really make it a place where we can be a blueprint of what a highly educated, empowered society looks like. So that's what I'm working on. But then also it's like, because I've just applied myself in the business, right? Because you have to make money in this world. It's like I just apply myself. I'm willing to face my fears, go outside my comfort zone, talk to people. Now I've created a life where I have more money than I need. So I have money and resources and time to do stuff like this. But it wasn't always like that. Right before it was like, okay, I only have 2 hours a week. I can do this thing. Now it's like I can actually design my life and my schedule how I want it to be, but not really how I want it to be. It's like what I see as best. And it ends up being the best thing. So yeah.
That's really cool, Mitch.
Yeah. That's
and
awesome.
then did you guys go to other meetups or you just did those ones that you guys were participating in?
All right, this funny story, right? So beforehand, we went to one other one. It's like Miracle Morning. It was this book written by this guy, and they have these meetups. They must be all around. And Seth had gone to it before, Eric had gone to it before, some people had. So they're like, hey, it's a good meetup. They get about 15 people in the room, people interested in self-development, could be a good group. So I went with, because I was like, we're going to be in the city. I was going with them. I'm like, sure, let's check it out. And it was at the county library in South Minneapolis, an extremely liberal place. And they are like on the doors, even though all the restaurants, everything, they're like, no mask. Like if you're unvaccinated, we encourage you. CDC recommends whatever, about Fauci. But I'm like, but the library, you would think would be the place where people are intelligent, right? Because there's books. Well, if they can't process it, we go in there and they're immediately, it was like, it reminded me of, that person that would be in the class and they would tattle on people to the teacher. They were like, you need to wear a mask if you're in here. And we're like, okay, yeah, we're just going to that room. And we just kind of walked past. And then like 20 minutes into the meetup, they came in, interrupted the meetup. They're like, library policy is that everyone in here needs to wear a mask. Okay. And I was just like, yeah, well, I'm exempt. I've read the state law, so does that include exemptions? And they're like, well, okay, well, you're exempt, but how about you other ones? Because we had like 4 of us and none of us were wearing a mask. And even the people wearing the masks, they were like making jokes of like, wow, it feels like we're in school again. Like they're just trying to tell on us. And one of the oh, it's so funny. Even one of the
those
ladies,
people probably don't want to be wearing the mask either. They're just doing it because they don't know you could just fucking not do it, or they're afraid.
So one of the guys, he was this like, older guy. You could tell he had like just moved. He's like an Indian software programmer guy. He had taken off the mask because he saw we had. And it was like, and you see people drinking their coffee and they take off the mask, or it'd be below their nose. And one older lady, she goes, yeah, because she was like almost trying to stand up for us. She's like, the mask doesn't even, like, you can breathe through it. She's like, it's just a formality. Like, come on. And so it's funny. And me and, you know, Seth and Amy, we're just, you know, Ali was there too. We're just like, okay, we'll see what happens. Then later, the librarian boss lady comes in. It was like a video game, and it's like the next.
This is like a librarian's wet dream.
And she's got the N95. I mean, she was wearing these pants that looked like she was like out of some GI Joe thing. I don't know. It was like intense. And she's like, I need to say, like, library policy, this is, you must wear a mask. She's getting all intense.
Dude, I would have been like,
ma'am, I should have done that. I was like, ma'am, I've read the state law. Are you telling me that someone like who is exempt has to come wear it in here? Like, are you kicking me out? She's like, well, you know, she like couldn't give an answer because she probably didn't fucking read the law, which I did, you know, so I know what I'm standing on. Finally, at the end of the 2-hour meetup, in the last 5 minutes, a guy with a badge comes in, and he's security, and he just goes, you know, he was cool, but he's like, okay, everyone who's not wearing a mask, you got to leave the building. That's the policy. He's like, and I'm like, even if you're exempt, he's like, yep. Even if you're exempt, whatever, you have to take that up with the county commissioner. That's just what it is. So I'm like, okay, I'm not trying to start.
Okay, let me call him right now.
Yeah, exactly. And so, you know, so I was like, there's people in the room that, yeah,
they're kicking me out. They said I have to take it up with you.
And I would just be like, oh no, he says it's cool.
He said it's cool.
If you don't agree, you have to take it up with the county commissioner now.
That's so funny. I wish I did that. And so, but I'm like, oh, there's like 2 people in this room that I got to talk to. So I was like, hey, you know, like, give me your number, take my number, like, text me. Cause I'm like, come to the self-perfected meetup.
No mask required.
We left. I was just like, wow, imagine that. Those people in that room making probably, I don't know what minimum wage is, but probably minimum wage there to enforce this mask, which if you actually read the scientific articles, you would see that mask is a cesspool for shit basically coming out of you. So it's actually, if you're actually concerned about your health, it is more dangerous to wear that mask. So you just see the hypocrisy and the insanity of this. But it was great because Seth and I afterwards, we were chatting, we were like, that was probably the most beneficial thing that any of them there witnessed, was that we were just stable. We were normal civil humans that were standing up, and these people basically booted us because we weren't willing to comply with this nonsensical rule that they had set. And so it was just funny, the hypocrisy of it. But that also just showed me, I'm like, we got to build this thing that we have bigger, because I'm not going fucking back there. If they're meeting in the same library, I'm not going to go participate in that. But I just use it all as fuel now of like, okay, you know, I'm going to go out there with even more tenacity. I'm going to get even more people to our thing where no one's going to enforce anything, and we hug each other. And it's like, it's great. You know, that's like a real community. If someone's immunocompromised and they're afraid of that, okay, then don't come to the meetup or go sit in the corner or something. But like, we're still going to offer ourselves to say, hey, look, anyone can come to ours, you know, and if you're not down with the principles and all that, you're probably not even going to want to attend. But, you know, or I'll talk to someone afterwards if they're clearly not understanding what we're doing.
You know, this whole immunocompromised thing, it kind of makes it sound kind of what I keep hearing all the time. I think it's kind of like an ADHD thing where someone's like, oh, I have ADD too. And you're like, yeah, okay, sure. Or so you like basically got bored in class because it was fucking boring, and now you're in trouble. So instead of just realizing it's fucking bullshit.
Or people are taking some medication for something else that they've been sold on the idea that it's helping.
And now we're responsible for their immunocompromised state rather than
exactly. It's like with that
are hurting them.
Yeah, with that type of thing, it's like, I'm going to keep living and I'm going to keep applying myself within the principles, and I'm going to create environments for people to come to in the real world so that we can hang out and talk about shit that really matters and then really do something with our lives. Because I'm here to change the system. I'm very clear on that. I realize that takes a lot of people who are very intelligent and programmed for that. So thus, you have to have TechnoTutor. You have to be distributing TechnoTutor. And you have to understand the principles and then live them. All right, and that's the process. And it's like the best thing ever. I'm like actually on my Saturday, I'm like full on working, you could say, because it's like what I'm doing to keep building everything I'm doing. But it's also the most fun thing I could imagine doing. I'm like, there's nothing else I'd want to be doing on a Saturday.
It's actually fun. Exactly.
Yeah. It's like the best of everything. And it wasn't always that fun. You know, the first few times I did the meetup, I was like, what am I going to talk about? What if people leave in the middle because it's not exciting enough? And then every time I did it, I was like, what the hell was I worried about? Like, that was actually great. I just used my tech to support myself till after about the fifth one. I was like, this is cool. Like, I enjoy this, you know, and now look at it right now. Imagine another year from now, but don't just watch me do it or Asif do it or Drake do it or Cameron do it or whatever. What resistance would you have to actually just doing it for yourself? Like, look at that, you know, and then change it.
There's one more comfort zone point that I want to just mention in this podcast. It's, you don't get a good feeling by just talking about it, like getting the word out there. Doesn't actually do anything. The only thing you should get good feelings out of is when somebody takes up this process and shows their commitment through actually fully engaging with the IP Light Techno Tutor in the groups, all that. Just talking about it and getting the word out there, it's just a way of you avoiding having to face your fear in supporting somebody and supporting this world to take its next step.
Well said.
Right. So, because Mitchell was talking about this earlier, he's like, you know, you can post a status on Facebook, but he's like, don't think that that's doing anything. And not that it's not doing anything. It's only doing something if you actually support somebody to go all the way and actually take on this process. Just talking about it on a podcast, for example, just talking about it, just making the Facebook post, just doing interviews, just going out and soapboxing to people, it does nothing. If you are priding yourself that you're here to change things and you're just talking about it or just getting people interested, you're not doing anything. You're afraid to take responsibility for supporting this world to change. So don't stop at, you know, oh, this person's interested in what we're doing. Interest is irrelevant. Action is what is important. When they take action, when they invest in themselves, actually invest, that's when the rubber meets the road. That's when you're in a position to actually support that person once they are actually a part of our network. Until then, don't consider that you've done anything or you're just confusing activity with accomplishment. I just wanted to share that point.
Yeah,
that's cool. So what did you guys do this weekend then?
Oh boy. You know what the coolest part was? The last time we were at hanging out with the Spehars at their beach house in Canada, there was somebody that we met there for the first time for about 5 or 10 minutes before we left. And she keeps recalling like, yeah, that really just getting to meet you guys. And that was kind of like the last thing to just be like, okay, I'm going to work with you guys. And that's Juliana. And right away, at this time when we all went to hang out there, me, Drake, Christine, Mailat, and the Spehars with the girls, and Juliana with Paolo, she was automatically, what came automatic to her is to replicate the same thing. Isn't that interesting? 1 + 1.
Like she brought somebody, you mean?
Out of 10. She said, hey, I want you to meet these people. I think if they just meet you and, you know, get a feel for who we are and what we're here to do, I think it'll be really supportive for them to understand more, right? And at the end of it, you know, connected with them and the people who came, they're really cool. Pascal and Ellie, they're really cool. And they have 2 awesome boys that get along really well. It's hilarious, actually. Super cute kids. But the point is, it's really cool to see that if you support somebody effectively, they will then do that for other people, right? And so my point of that is, you know, I made the decision in advance. Okay, whoever I meet, if at the first beach house, I'm going to give them a hug. I just made within myself. I'm like, without making, I'm just going to give them a hug, right? And I shared that with other people there. And they're like, okay, yeah, let's give them a hug, whoever it is, right? And then that was the thing that she recalled. She was like, oh, I just come in there and y'all gave me hugs and it was such a great environment. And it was just that little push outside my comfort zone to just be inviting, right? And just, that's what we're here to create. And here's something really interesting, really fascinating, that the people who came to visit, she was sharing this point. She's like, one thing I noticed in America is a lot of people join churches. Because she's also from Canada. She's in the same boat of Olive. She's from Canada. She's come down here. And she's like, a lot of people are in churches and that's where they get their network from. That's where they get their after school programs from. That's where they get the people to hang out with and all that stuff. Oh, you want to hang out? No, I'm hanging out with my church group. I'm going to volunteer, all that stuff. So I think that's really interesting. I think it's really cool. So I guess like we're going to have to join a church or something to get that community, right? And then I had the opportunity to share with her, what we're doing, like, right? But that is the exact significance of what we're doing. We're here to use that same system to give people that network, those relationships, the after school programs. There's no school programs, the during school program,
the after no school program.
Exactly, right? But the context is an opportunity to have that network, people you can do business with, people you can hang out with, all of that stuff, without having to like drink the blood of Christ or whatever. Like you don't have to do all the rituals and all that stuff, right? It's like you can have a really cool supportive environment where you have the people that you connect with without that point. So she was making the point of, it seems like the only way to build a network, to have that group is through church. And we were there to be like, oh, actually, no, that's what we're creating here with this. She's like, oh,
because why are they at the church? They're united by this particular concept point, right? So we're just doing that with a different point. It's the principles that we're talking about and the tools. So just uniting around that and then doing the same system, what you said, which is creating the environments where we're having fun, clubhouses where it's like you can kind of give a sermon, which just means like you're talking about application of the principles in your life. I mean, it's just that same system. Yeah, it works.
I remember I reacted to that when you guys first said it, like, we're going to make like a church. I'm like, whoa.
Because of all the negative shit about being in a church, which is all from the fact that people are not really unified.
Exactly.
Because I didn't like that shit either. I did not like going to church. I wasn't like, oh yeah, I want to make a church because I love church. Like, no, fuck that.
It was a lie. It was a total lie.
But it's realizing that system is effective,
Exactly. So when we say that, we're talking about minus all the weird shit. We're just talking about the benefits of church without having to do all the stuff that you don't want to do so that you can get the benefits. We're not talking about worshiping anything. We're not talking about praying to anything. We're talking about just take 100% responsibility, come hang out. That's right. And talk about, how your life is.
And if you say something stupid, I'm going to call you out and support you to stop it.
Exactly. Right. Where you're actually being held accountable rather than somebody made this point. I think it was Drake or somebody. They're saying, imagine the pastor actually came off the stage and was like, I don't know if it was on the last podcast or what, but it was like, how are you living the word of Jesus? That doesn't happen. But imagine there was actual accountability, right? It would be a very different situation, right?
Oh, dude, I just realized the whole thing about the rat and how it's like they saved it and now they're like struggling. That's Christianity.
Oh, nice.
He came down, they sent Jesus one time to like save everybody. And now they're like, okay, we'll let you struggle for fucking eternity. So keep waiting for him to come back and save you again.
Here's the question. What is 6 minutes in rat years versus 3 days in rat years? And that's how we're going to find out how long we're going to struggle for until we take responsibility.
Well, what's the average lifespan of a rat?
Anyways, you figure that out. Anything from the weekend? We're gonna look that up afterwards. We'll do that experiment.
Yeah, man. There's so much from this past weekend. Just expanding our network, having that community, it's so crucial. But I think also seeing what we're doing for the children is like,
they changed so much. Mackenzie and Kiara.
Yeah, exactly. Like we just had this moment where we could see from the last time we went to visit to this time just how much more stable they've become, the children have become. Also how much more stable Rob has become, as well, like within everything that we're doing, and that comes from the support of this group, the tools that we use and the support of this group. And actually being able to see it in real physical, that's one thing that I've always valued about like physical reality is you can see it. Like somebody can talk to you over the phone, right? And tell you something, or you can see them online or whatever, and you'll see whatever they want to show you. But when you're actually physically there with someone, you can see who they are in every moment, because it's really hard unless you're like an actor like Asif. It's really hard to keep up sort of a persona or a facade for a prolonged period of time. And even when you are an actor, like when the scene is cut, you're just like, whoo, fucking relax, like, all right, you know.
Yeah, and like if you're Alec Baldwin, you're just like randomly shooting people and stuff.
That's who you really are. That's who you really
You're
are.
like a gun control advocate over here, and then behind the scenes you're just like blasting people.
Exactly. So you can only keep that persona for so long. That's what I'm trying to say. But no, it's really cool just to see that aspect of, oh, okay, you actually are physically changing. And I always have this thought in the back of my mind of like, well, or people always ask this anyway, how do you know that's just not over time, that, you know, over time people change and they make different decisions and things like that. It's like, okay, but after you reach like a certain age, you don't fucking do that anymore. Like you're just pretty much, you do the same thing for the next 15, 20, whatever years. And it's not until like you actually have to make a physical change within yourself, which is what we're doing, in order to have a real change. That all the
well, in order to have an environment where people are in your environment and you're playing games with everybody and you're not trying to abuse everybody for something, you know what I mean? Like when you go to like the normal holiday thing and everyone's just sitting around like gossiping and, you know, fighting with each other and doing drama and all that, to be able to create an environment where you're not doing that, you have to change to do that. To not do that to your kids, you have to change. So that's what we mean by change. It's like, it's not just, yeah, people all the time, they go to church, they get together, they have parties and stuff. That's nothing new. It's the starting point within yourself of when you're there, what are you participating in? And that's why the environment that we have whenever we get together is different than any other environment that you would have been exposed to.
And here's like one of my favorite parts, like a really cool part, is here we are in this multi-million dollar beach home with the sunrise literally sets. You look out, there's their pool. There's like 4 stories, right? They got the rooftop, you got the hot tub, the pool, a little bit of grass, the softest fucking beach I've ever touched my feet on. Private beach, just water for days, and the sun is setting right there. But the thing that was most stimulating there was the conversations we were having. And it's the exact same conversations I was having a bit ago with a guy who's brand new to this process, who came from a totally other country, who's living in a shack. It's the same conversations. And both groups of people from totally different classes of society, not totally different classes of society, but from different points in the society, they both knew the same problem in the world. They both had the same struggles in their own life of not being able to push through fears and things like that, where the reason they wanted to spend time with us, right, is because that singular point, the same thing of what are we here to do? What are we united in purpose? The environment is kind of irrelevant. It adds good spice to it. It just makes it fun. It makes it exciting, whatever. But the thing that's consistent is what we're here to do. Even if we're in a, you know, little shack, or if we're in a multi-million-dollar beach house that has so many places to sleep, it's great. The closet is one of the closets in the master bedroom is the size of some apartments, for sure.
Yeah. Man, just seeing how valuable what we're doing is, you know, that it does resonate with someone, like you're saying, from all aspects of life, because what we're doing is actually promoting life, you know.
Universal.
Universal. Yeah. Universal. And so it's cool because we're actually having fun while we're doing it. Like Asif and I, we made a video on the way to there, and it was just like having
just putting his camera up, like, what are you doing? Like, what are you taking pictures of? He's like, we're making a video. Okay.
Yeah. And he's like, what are we going to talk about? You're going to find out. Here we go. But it's cool because the ability of conversation that we're able to have, Cam, you make this point all the time. It's like, we're giving everyone everything, so they have the opportunity to have the equal vocabulary, equal education. Like they can say, oh, I see how you got there, and they can actually be equal. It's not like dependent on, oh, we're just listening to Asif, because
right, like it's like, oh, you're the amazing person who has all the knowledge and wisdom, and I'm listening to you and give me more. And it's like, I would rather automate it. And also, I don't fucking know everything, so that would be stupid if you followed me thinking I had the ultimate, like what I have is the ultimate answer.
Yeah.
Just for you to do it. That's it's not like I have all of the knowledge and the secrets in me.
Right.
I just have, it's like, it'd be like if you were like, what's the best knife to like cut some chicken up or something for a meal, versus thinking that this person has to be the one to do it.
Yeah.
And it's like, I have the answer to that. And they're like, oh, thinking I'm saying I have to be the one. I'm like, no, like this is the knife I use. You just have to learn how to use it and you can do it.
Yeah.
So it's like, yes, I have the answer. I have the ultimate answer, but it's not unique to me. It's just, I'm using it and you use it too. And someone else shared it with me. So it's not even a point of, there is no specialness. You might just see that somebody has been using the knife longer, so they're like more proficient. But they're showing you how you can develop that same level of skill.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And that was one thing that Rob had said, was like, he just went and started doing the DIP, using his technotutor. And that is what he saw within himself had helped him to change so much, to like, oh, okay.
That's something that's hard to explain, which is the physical meeting is what helps that person shift.
Yeah. Which came from us visiting beforehand, like a few months earlier, we had visited and said, hey, here's why you should do this.
See, and then what people sometimes don't realize is they think it's like the big major events, which is not to say that those aren't useful. You do have to have those on a regular basis. But if your weekend meetings and things like that, your local stuff is not at the same level of substance,
dude,
then all that ends up happening is you just keep waiting for those big events and nothing ever changes because you weren't doing it the whole time. So the big events will help you through big shifts. But what we're doing and you guys are doing is the local stuff is of the same level of substance. It's just more people at a bigger event.
Right. This felt like a big event. This felt like, honestly, like we were there Saturday. We went Saturday. We left Sunday.
Like 24 hours.
But it felt like fucking days. It felt like days because we did so much. We had so many conversations, and it wasn't like, there was like, oh, we got to run down the beach, and then we got to, pull this thing. No, we weren't.
You're like about to eat the bacon. You're like, no, put it down. We got to go. And you're like, okay, no, get out of the water. We got to go. And you're like, fuck.
Yeah,
we didn't do a lot of things. It was just the amount of breakthroughs.
Yes, the conversations that we were having, and then it was just like, man, it was.
Isn't that what people are looking for from the metaverse?
Yeah,
they don't even know that they're looking for that. I'm just saying they're looking for that substance, that's something that's just is fun, and I'm really in it.
Okay. You know what it's like? It's like when you're in the metaverse and you're looking for that adrenaline rush or whatever it is. It's like that is a drug that makes you feel like I got it, but it wears off it's very thin. It wears off right away, and then you have to go get that again, and then that's when people come out of the metaverse. It's the same thing you were talking about with Metamorphosis of Prime Intellect, right? Where it's like it's got to be more and more. It's the same thing with porn. It's got to be more and more depraved, more and more. It's just like, oh, I need to get that energy. But when you have something of substance, of substance, you're like, whoa, this is like real. This is like you're fulfilled, and you're like, yes. And then you can continue getting more in a sustainable way, and you're actually fulfilled. You're actually changing. You're actually doing the things. It's what you actually want. That hit that you're getting is fake. It's not real.
Yeah.
Like you experience it, but it's not real. That's why it goes
And
away.
you know it's not. It's like
Yeah.
you know it. That's why you always feel worse afterwards.
Right. I remember.
It's like, do you want to feel worse afterwards, or do you want to feel good in the moment and after?
Yes. Yeah. I remember when I would take any kind of, drug, whatever, right? Like while I was doing it, I would be telling myself in my mind, like, why am I doing this? Like I know this is not real. I know this is going to wear off. I know that like, I don't want to really be doing this, but like, even while I'm feeling good, like that was always like kind of the thought behind the feeling would just be like, okay, well, I can't do this forever.
Yeah, it's like the Sunday morning before school the next day.
Yeah.
You're like, I know this has got to come to an end.
Right. So, okay. So either you're going to chase a high that's not real, and you're going to continue chasing that high, and you're never, ever going to feel fulfilled, or you can have actual real fulfillment, which it doesn't happen instantaneously, right? But it's sustainable, it's real, it lasts, and you can build off of that. You can share that with others. You can actually grow that and give that to your children as well. It leaves behind a legacy, and you can have that real impact in the world. That is what everybody wants when they're a kid, is like, man, I wish everything was like already working so that my parents didn't have to stress, so they could actually be here with me, so they wouldn't be such assholes to me. You're thinking that as a kid, You may not say it in those words, but that's how you feel, right?
Definitely. Yeah.
You can actually give that to your children, and you can actually give that to yourself, and you can actually be in a community that's building that. It's here, it's now. And if it's not near you right now, we can show you how it can be near you. Right.
But you have to start walking the process.
You do.
And that's why we're always saying this, more so like on our other meetings and so forth, but this will eventually be a point where it'll be very widespread. And so you might think, oh, well, I'll just wait until it's widespread. But the reality is you wouldn't have done the process to be able to enjoy it. It's kind of like, have you ever had like a really good meal, but after you've been eating a lot of really good meals already? And it's like, it's not the same as like you've been working all day, you're hungry, you come home and there's a really good meal and you're just like, wow, this is so good. But then you try to have it the next day and it's not the same. It's like you have to do the process. So to be able to be at the meetup and enjoy yourself with other people, if it's just other people are creating it for you, but you haven't changed to be the person to be, you could literally switch places with the host. You're not going to get out of it what you actually want. It's going to be better than what you've experienced before, but the environment is going to push you to grow and change. So that's why the metaverse isn't going to work out, because it doesn't require you to change. It's someone else manufacturing an environment to give you what you believe you want, which is not really what you want. It's just artificial. Artificial, not that artificial is any better than natural. There's nothing wrong with artificial, but it's artificial in the sense of it's not even artificial from a starting point of what's best. What were you going to say, Asif?
The satisfaction that you get when you have to change, the reason why you experience real satisfaction or a more significant satisfaction from when you have to change is because your body is designed to make you feel good when you support life. And when you suppress life, it's designed to not make you feel good. So even the feeling good that you have when you're doing something that's not who you are, you're going into the metaverse, you can get high.
Yeah.
But
you're exploiting a system, you're abusing it.
Exactly.
And you're not giving to your body what it actually needs. You're just using it for your mind. You're actually abusing it.
The person you have to become, it's like the real satisfaction of being in a group is knowing that before, when you're in groups, you're just anxious the whole time and you're like, oh fuck, please don't call on me, and like I don't want to play this game, and I just want to sit on the sidelines. And then you've walked a process and now you're like happy to be there and you're not in your mind so much. And that requires a real focus and understanding of how you work, which can only come through what we're doing. And that's the satisfaction that you cannot get anywhere else. That if you haven't been walking this process, you don't even know what it's like. You don't even know what it's like. It's just like somebody who's been jerking off to porn their whole life and never has sex. you don't even know the depths to which that can go. It's the exact same thing. Because every single person in that room, the most consistent comment I've heard is like, wow, I've never experienced being this at ease, the most myself, and having the most fun with this many people. Because usually when I'm with this many people, I'm not myself, I'm anxious, and I'm not having fun.
And it's a point where it's like you can be yourself in that at ease point, but it's not from the perspective of because I've conformed to a specific, what is the word? Like, it's like if I'm super into Pokemon and then I go to a Pokemon convention and I'm like, oh, I feel like I can finally be myself.
I can finally just talk about Pokemon for 4 hours.
But it's like, but that's not who you are.
Yeah.
That's something you've hypnotized yourself and programmed yourself with. This environment is who you really are, meaning being here, being relaxed, doing what is best. It's a much more natural, at ease kind of experience. It's not a hyped up thing, because even when you're the Pokemon obsessed person and you go and interact with the other Pokemon obsessed people, guess what? The who you really are is still there under the surface, creating conflict and interacting. So you're not addressing that.
A great example in my own life was when I came to visit at your home for the first time, Cam. Like the first time that I went there, I didn't know, what you were going to be doing or anything like that. I just, I knew that you had a family, and I was like, I don't know what a family looks like that's got a mother and father that are on the same page. I'd like to see that. But when I got there, immediately, I just felt like myself melt away. Like I felt like, wow,
all the other stuff.
Yeah, right, exactly. And so it wasn't like I was preparing myself like I'm going to learn all the things that Cameron says, and like, I'm going to adhere to or like I'm going to learn all the Pokemon, and so I get to be with all the Pokemon people. It's going to be great. No, it's like I was there, and to learn, just to see your family, really. And while I was there, I was like, holy fuck, I can be myself. Like I'm not like, I felt all this stress just go that I didn't know I was holding on to on a regular basis even. And I was like, whoa, okay, this is amazing. And that is what I'm seeing we are creating now for other people who are just coming in. They're coming in and they're like, whoa, what the fuck? Like, this is, as soon as they come into the environment, it happens within moments where you just realize like, oh, this is real. And I don't have to hold on to this character, because that character that we're holding on to is a defense mechanism.
Yeah.
It's just like, I know the world is trying to fucking fuck me. And so I need to hold up this wall at least for a little bit. So I don't get completely rammed, but what we're doing is actually, we're on the side of life. We're on the side of like promoting life. And so when you're in that physical environment and you see us and you're talking with us and like you see the physical like movements and everything, unconsciously you realize like, oh, okay, this is supportive for me, right? And that's when you feel like that stress kind of melts away. And then the fun thing is we also do a lot of like actual calling out and challenging of like, hey, that's something you shouldn't participate in. Yeah. And then you get to like feel that stress.
And that's why people come, because they want that point where it's like they know they're accepting certain points in their life, and it's like, I know I shouldn't and I don't want to, but I just can't within myself figure out how to let it go. And then you have other people saying to you like, hey, you got to let that go, and here's why, and helping them, you reason it out, and you're like, and then you go home and it's a lot easier to let it go. So the whole reason people go to like events is to get those breakthroughs, but they didn't prepare themselves to actually receive a breakthrough, to actually participate in one, because they don't realize it's not just going to come to them. You're an active participant in it. So you prepare yourself to be able to understand, oh, here's why I should change. And now I'm going to do it. I just make the decision. So you're supporting people in those environments to make decisions, not forcing them to do something or giving them some infinite fucking knowledge, wisdom shit. You're just supporting them to make the decision to get them to that point. It's like you're just It's like selling. It's really all it is. We're constantly just selling each other on go to that next level of responsibility.
Here's another fucking reason why the physical is so important is because when there's somebody physically there, they can see you and they can see what you're participating in, and the things that are unconscious to you that you just automatically participate in, that you're unaware of, they can call it out. And then it's like, if you're doing this, what we're doing, if you're walking your process and you want to accelerate your process, there's so many things that you're doing that have become just second nature to you that you don't even realize that you're doing. And when somebody's physically there with you, they can go, hey, why do you do that? And then you can go, oh shit, it's brought into your awareness. And that's like, you cannot get that over the phone. You cannot get that like through Zoom. You cannot get that in a metaverse. You have to participate physically. So if there's not anyone physically in your environment, like, okay, reach out to us. We'll show you how to find them. We'll show you how to find them. Like,
yeah,
seriously.
physical evolution happens physically. And what's going to happen is with the metaverse and all this, if hypothetically we were to allow humanity to just get sucked into that with no solution, it would just be the end of all evolution, period.
Yep.
There'd be nothing anymore. It would just go into a cycle of just slow destruction. I mean, think about like the fucking point about the Matrix. The machines trap everybody in the pods. That's the end of human evolution. Now it's just the machines live and they do what they're fucking doing. So when you go back, you're like, whoa, look at all these fucking machines and they create all this shit and everything. Like they're the ones evolving. So the system will continue to evolve just to control humanity.
True.
Is that what we want?
No.
You know, that's not why we're here. Right? You guys want to wrap it up?
I think that's a good idea.
Like, subscribe, comment, so we know you're not a bot.
And share.
And comment multiple times, because that's the only way we comment.
join us.
4 times. That way we know you're not a bot. If you do it 5
join us
times,
in our next podcast will be held in our virtual Metaverse studio. No.
Yeah.
Please don't make me go and do the Metaverse shit to do the podcast. I'm talking to the listeners.
Because we dance for you. We're your monkeys.
I'll do whatever you say, but I don't want to.
Please don't, bro.
Just like, if you like this and share it, then I won't have to do the Metaverse.
That'd be great.
We always do like the like, comment, share stuff like way at the wrong time.
Yeah.
It's like the worst place to do it, you know, which is like the very end.
Yep.
Everyone's already like tuned off because they're like, yeah,
I'm
okay.
gonna
I
give
can
you one
see
more
you guys.
nugget of gold if you stay right to the last second. Only a nugget though. Join the Facebook group. Global Hangout was awesome last time. A lot of really, really, really amazing stories being shared on that. Like a lot of massive changes. So that's really cool. And here's your nugget of gold. Be consistent. All right.
See ya.